Hello, 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 my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds, and welcome to my book garden. Actually, welcome to my basement, but books, fake flowers. I forgot to light the candle. I have a new buddy in the background, which you will see in just a moment, but I do what I can. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my very chill live stream. Hello, Chi Chi Kiki. Welcome. I hope you're doing wonderful today. It was a very beautiful day here. A little warm, but it's summer, so what can you do? Um, no, I am having a fantastic day. So, I also have energy drink here. So we are good to finish the main storyline. But yes, legalities. So we will be reading The Imperial Uncle and we will be finishing the main storyline. In regards to The Imperial Uncle, I do not own anything. I don't claim any copyright. I'm not making anything off this. This is just me doing this because I can. The only thing I own is the physical copy in front of me and my time, and sometimes not even that. But that's okay. If you couldn't already tell, this is a very chill live stream. I will be responding to comments. I will be talking to the book. I will be making inferences. But yes, hello Cookielicious and hello Peacock Pages. Oh, yeah. Hello, wanted to start off by saying thank you for the timestamp announcement last week. It was so kind of you. I tried. I still don't quite know how to do it, but I made the attempt, and I'm glad it helped. But yes. Anyway, yeah, this is going to be a pretty chill stream. We're going to be finishing off the main part. We'll have extras. I actually will not be available Thursday, but I really want to get these extras done, and I actually have time tomorrow to do it. So instead of Thursday, we are going to have a stream tomorrow for the first extra, and then we'll finish off the last extra on Tuesday. And I will be able to show you guys my new tattoo on Tuesday, my Weiwuxian Kitsune. But yes, speaking of Weiwuxian, I think you probably have noticed something in my background, and he is gorgeous. So I'm actually gonna go get him because he's beautiful enough. And also, I'm gonna light this candle because it's a basement. What do you expect? So it's not the best smelling, but it works. Okay. So now it will smell delicious. And this beautiful boy cost me probably more than I should have spent, but look at him. Like, look at him. He's so pretty. Like, my baby girl came home and he is serving like hardcore. I was very apprehensive about this arriving in one piece, and the box was pretty smashed up, but he was thankfully all in one piece, all fabulous, serving everything up. But like, I had to brag a little bit about this because he's so pretty. Was he like I wore the right shirt today? I have no shelf control, like both for books and for figures. Hello, Momar's Rover. I hope you were able to see my beautiful boy, and if not, he is in the background. I ended up splurging. But oh my god, it was so worth it. It's such a beautiful figure. But yeah. So suffice to say, we're going to be a little more fiscally responsible after the tattoo on Thursday, because that's the last bit of cash we have for disposable income for a while. Oh well, they're worth it. But yeah, brag as you should. It must be expensive. Oh, I got it on sale, but it still kind of was one of those like, ooh. Yeah. Part of it too is like, even how much I love him, if I was buying him full price, I wouldn't be buying him. But yeah. No, life is short. I agree, Peacock Pages. And on that note, I'm going to blow my nose and we can go ahead and get started. But yes. So last time we had our protagonist kind of living his wandering life as a merchant. Kind of came to this like seaside town and was chilling and trying to buy some silk and different things, and our boys came back into his life and kind of were like, so we realized that you were not actually guilty and your imperial nephew kind of wants you to come back. And he was initially like, I guess I have no choice, until our old friend Flame Rancy popped back in and kind of was like, you coming? I'll take you along with me. Like, we'll go sail away. Yeah. So I returned to my little house, took my luggage, and boarded Lu Tongyi's merchant ship. It was indeed extremely easy for the ship to leave Chengshou. The guards let us pass without even a cursory inspection. Yun Yu and Chitan were probably still in dreamland, not yet out of bed. As the sky began to lighten, Liu Tongyi's ship sped through the water with the wind at its back, carrying me away from Chengshou. So, he has now escaped on a boat with Liu Tongyi after telling Yun Yu that basically like he'd stay in the little merchant town for a while, like, because he didn't want to cause trouble for Liu Tongyi. And then he was like, you know what? No. Fine. Let's go. Okay. Chapter 9. The flooding around Chengshou had disrupted the waterways. After we left the city, we first had to go a ways north and turn into another river, then travel southeast in order to avoid the floodwaters. Liu Tongyi's merchant ship was swift, and the wind was in our favor as we traveled north. Approaching nightfall, we had already reached the intersection of the two rivers. We moored at a pier in a town called Rivermeet to pass the night. We would be back on our way early the next morning. Rivermeet was quite an affluent little town. Because of its convenient position on the waterways, merchants coming from all directions use it as a place to drop anchor and rest while traveling. Merchant ships of all sizes were packed tightly at the pier, on which all kinds of little stands were set up. Some little dinghies hawked their wares among the ships, though the prices were steeply marked up. 5 coins for a mantou, 15 for tea leaves. Well, I don't know the price system, but even I think that sounds pretty steep. Liu Tongyi said that all the vendors on the pier fleeced their customers like this, and that prices were slightly better in the town itself. All of Rivermeet's markets stayed open throughout the night, which was as busy as day. I was feeling a little stifled after spending all day on board the ship, so I went for a walk around town with him. The town was indeed quite prosperous, with all kinds of stalls crammed elbow to elbow along the streets, the majority of them put up temporarily by traveling merchants who were passing through, taking advantage of their resting time to sell off some of the knickknacks they had picked up in the course of transporting their shipments. One little street embraced all 4 corners of the world. from the desert to Jiangnan, from the capital to foreign parts. They had everything. The shops lining both sides of the street were sumptuously decorated. Listening to the accents in which their proprietors solicited customers, I heard the Rivermet town locals and all kinds of outsiders. Looking along the street, the businesses were mainly of three kinds: restaurants, bathhouses, and brothels. This was in keeping with the towns I had passed through in the course of my business. A ship's stores were limited, after all, and the fare was monotonous. While there was water all around, bathing wasn't as convenient as on land. When merchants who traveled the waterways came ashore, the majority of them went straight to a restaurant to eat to their heart's content. Then they went to a bathhouse to soak in hot water to their satisfaction, and finally to a brothel to relax and enjoy themselves. I mean, if you are basically a market, like, commercial town, that's pretty good planning. Smart. Liu Tongyi and I spent a while wandering the streets, then went into a restaurant that still had an empty table, which happened to be in a quiet corner of the second floor next to a window. While we were ordering, I said to Liu Tongyi, "You must let me pay for this meal to thank you for bringing me along." Liu Tongyi didn't refuse. He smiled and said, "Then I won't insist." I already knew that he liked spicy food and didn't have any particular aversions, so I freely ordered some dishes and asked for a pitcher of wine. Shortly after, the wine came, and I tried it. While it was a local brew called Rivermet Vintage, it was much better than Cheng Shou's Bamboo Leaf Green. Liu Tongyi tasted some of the lamb tripe and chicken gizzards in chili oil and said that the dish had an authentic flavor. I mean, it's lamb tripe and chicken gizzards. Those things have very distinctive flavors. Those organs, that offal. The restaurants here were likely used to receiving customers from all over and were proficient in all sorts of cuisines. The waiter brought over a lily bulb and water chestnut soup just then. I said, "Seeing water chestnuts always reminds me of a funny story. A couple of years ago, when I was trading in the desert, I ate grilled meat every day and washed it down with sheep's milk and warm wine. My internal heat got so bad that my whole throat was sore. I could barely drink water. Suddenly, I desperately wanted candied water chestnuts, ideally the kind chilled with cool water. I spent all night thinking about them, and then I actually ate some. The taste was still in my mouth the next morning. But when I got up, I found that the piece of fur I'd been using as a pillow had a big chunk nibbled out of the edge, as if a rat had been at it. When I thought about it, the candied watered chestnuts I'd eaten in my dream had been a little strange. Chestnuts are tender and crisp, but mine were even chewier than jerky. Man, I hope his digestive system was okay after that. Like, you're really not supposed to eat cotton or thread or whatever his pillow was made out of. So maybe buckwheat. I don't know. I mean, he's still here, so I guess he's okay, but oof. Smiling, Liu Tongyi said, "This dish certainly doesn't taste like jerky. Have some more." I scooped up a spoonful and put it in the dish in front of me. I didn't finish the story. When I left the desert and came south, the very first thing I did was go to the market to purchase a few gin of chestnuts and take them back to my lodgings to prepare them. But it turns out water chestnuts have a skin that's very hard to get off. They have to be boiled to make them sweet and tender. I borrowed a kitchen knife from the inn's cook, spent ages hacking away at the skins, and nearly cut off a finger. When all the skin was cut away, there was almost nothing left of the chestnut. So I went and bought some more and peeled those as well. Practiced for days, peeling and slicing. Finally, a waiter at the inn couldn't stand it anymore and asked me, since I wasn't planning to sell them and was only going to eat them myself, couldn't I just dip them in sugar and eat them? Why bother slicing them? So I found out what I'd been doing was superfluous. I mean, kind of surprised he didn't just, like, buy pre-prepared chestnuts. Like, if he was going through all that trouble, like, I admire that he kept going with it, but, like, at that point, wouldn't you notice, hey, these look different than what I'm used to? Oh my gosh. Liu Tongyi looked at me dubiously. Why not ask the inn to prepare them for you? We're on the same page, my man! Smiling, I said, it's clear you aren't used to being out on business alone, or else you aren't as stubborn about food as I am. Business is on a larger scale. Your business is on a larger scale than mine, so in that aspect, you aren't as savvy. You can't always have a cook around. If you learn to make something yourself, as long as you can get together the ingredients, you can eat it whenever you want. I agree on both those principles, but if you want to learn how to do something, I feel like you need to like if it's not working at the beginning and you have access to someone who knows how to do it, like but you want to learn, like it's okay to ask for help, my man, or like, hey, you've made this. How did you do it? And if they're open to it, like, why not? Liu Tongyi's expression became one of approval and admiration. I said modestly, though up to the present I've only learned to make a few dishes and soups, which are very barely just edible. Liu Tongyi smiled and said that I also want to go to the kitchen to learn a little. At least I want to learn to make chili sauce and chili oil, so I don't have to go without. I don't know what ingredients you have brought aboard ship, I said. I'll see if I can scare up a few dishes to show off my meager skills, just by way of thanks. This meal is thanks enough, said Liu Tongyi. Anyway, it doesn't cost me anything to have Master Shao aboard. His tone was still relaxed, just the same as when he had taken me away from Changsha. We finished the meal and left the restaurant. Naturally, I couldn't go with Liu Tongyi to the other two kinds of establishments in town. It was already late, so we simply returned to the ship. I mean, you could go bathe. When I finished my bath, I left my cabin for a stroll and saw that the door to Liu Tongyi's cabin next to mine wasn't fully closed, and a light was still burning. So I went over, knocked, and opened it. I wonder if I might get a cup of tea? Smiling, Liu Tongyi said, I've just made some, as it happens. He found a cup and filled it. It was a weak tea. He and I sat on either side of a table. Liu Tongyi said, Since we left Changsha, I haven't asked yet where Master Shao wants to go, and what plans you have for the future. When you drop me off in Suzhui, 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 I said, I'll continue southeast to the sea. We're just going to go with it, because that's the best I can do. Are you planning a sea voyage? Said Liu Tongyi. I'm planning to find a place where I can settle down. I won't be coming back. Liu Tongyi was silent. I sighed and said, This wasn't an easy decision to make, but it's no longer up to me. A dead man should take care not to show himself. The empire seems large, but in reality it's very small. I've been all over these past few years, and I've still run into some people I used to know. So I'm going to find a place where such problems won't arise, and everyone can relax. In Chengshou, Yun Yu's emotional knot about me ought to have been untied. He and Shizi could only rely on themselves going forward. There was no room for outside interference. I could finally be at peace. Chitan also seemed quite well, and I had heard nothing of the princess or Chu Shun. They were probably also doing fine. In the end, I still can't say I've returned the favor I owe you, I said. It wasn't very fair to deliberately give you a fright in prison like that, and now I've also asked you to transport me. I think that you don't owe me any favors, said Liu Tongyi. What's more, Master Shao has presented me with an excellent deal. Then let's say this, I said. If Master Mei one day goes to sea to purchase stock and passes by where I'm staying, I'll take care of food and lodgings for you. Liu Tongyi paused. Smiling in the lamplight, he said, I trust Master Shao not to go back on that promise. Looking at Liu Tongyi, I suddenly felt moved. 3 years ago and now, when it came to the very end, it was always Liu Tongyi of all my acquaintances who was with me. Even if I had always been the one to deliberately seek him out, it was still a kind of destiny. I returned to my cabin. The dark of midnight was a little desolate. In the silence, there came the splash of oars moving throughout the water. Next, I heard a couple of gentle raps at the cabin's window. A mincing female voice, slurring a little, said, Sir, are you lonely tonight? Shall I keep you company? I was stunned. I thought to myself that she ought to change her method of soliciting customers. It's more likely to be scared than seduced. I heard a few more knocks at the window. When no one answered, the splashing came again and moved away. Next, I heard the crisp knocking on the window lattice of the neighboring ship. Sir, are you lonely tonight? Shall I keep you company? Next, a window sash opened noisily, and a low voice said, How would you keep me company, lovely? I was shaken. The mincing female voice said, However you like, sir. My company doesn't cost much. Laughing, the voice said, How can a lovely lady be cheap? I opened the window a crack and saw the big ship moored next to us, brightly lit. A man leaned against a window frame. His silhouette seemed familiar. Oh, man. Who is it gonna be this time? The reason that man looked familiar was that he bore a strong resemblance to Yun Yu. But it took only one glance from me to know that this wasn't Yun Yu, only someone who looked like him. Even the posture he was sitting in and the tone he was using to speak to that woman had something of Yun Yu in them. But it was the Yun Yu of 3 years ago, not the Yun Yu of today. His voice was different from Yun Yu's too, but it did resemble Yun Yu's father, Yun Tang. But Yun Tang was in his 50s now. Even if he had escaped his little temple, he wouldn't be out here behaving like a suave young rake. The similarity was so striking. Was he related to the Yun family? Oops. Sorry about that. I simply opened the window. On the deck of the ship next to us, some servants holding lanterns were helping a woman aboard. She straightened her dress and followed the servants into the ship's hold. The boat that had brought her unexpectedly rowed back in my direction. The boatman bowed and then said, Sorry, sir. You didn't answer, so I thought you didn't want company. There are other women on shore. Shall I bring you on? Forget it. I think it's not my fate tonight, I said. The boatman said at once, Sure it is. There's plenty of fate to go around. The ladies on shore are all hoping it's their fate to be with you. Very persistent. As I was about to respond, the man sitting by the window raised his voice. My friend on the neighboring ship, the night is quiet and I have wine and a lovely lady. Why not come over and drink with me? Everybody be after him in some way. Oh boy. I was a little moved, but still I said, Thank you for the invitation, but staying up late is bad for me, and I must turn in early so I can travel tomorrow. He laughed. Then I won't insist. He saluted me from a distance, and I lifted my hands to return the salute. Only, I was in the dark with no lamp burning, so he must not have seen. After a while, the window sash on the neighboring ship closed. I gave another tactful refusal to the boatman standing under the window, waiting attentively, and also closed my window and went to sleep. The next morning, when I had finished washing up, I wanted to go ask Liu Tongyi whether he knew the background of the man on the neighboring ship. But I heard from a page that the traveling merchants from the surrounding ships had come to call, and Liu Tongyi was talking to them now. I came to the cabin used as a hall, and sure enough, found Liu Tongyi sitting with a number of men. They stood when they saw me arrive, and we exchanged greetings. One of them seemed to be the man in the cabin on the neighboring ship last night. Liu Tongyi said, This Master Wan is a major merchant in the jewel trade. I said at once that it was nice to meet him, and he smiled and said, Master Mei is too kind. My name is Wan Tianshan, a mere seller of rocks. The other traveling merchants around us laughed. With Master Wan so modest, the rest of us won't even dare to claim to be in business. I lifted my sleeves and said, I am Xiao Kai, just a wanderer who makes my living picking up odds and ends. I'm currently traveling on Master Mei's ship on my way to purchase wares in the south. The merchants around us laughed again. Master Xiao is being even more modest. You see, Master Wan really did go too far just now. Seen by daylight, Wan Qianshan didn't look as similar to Yun Yu as he had in the dark last night. He seemed to be a few years older, closer to 30, and Yun Yu now was much sparer than him. This man was an excellent conversationalist and had an unbridled air about him. There must be something interesting in his background. He was no ordinary merchant. His face was faintly like Yun Yu's, but at a closer look, the details were very different. This man's eyes had an inborn smile that gave one an automatic feeling of ease and closeness. Only in the magnificence of his attire was there further resemblance to Yun Yu. It occurred to me that examining Wan Qianshan so closely might make him suspicious, so I looked him over once again and said, I find that it is Master Wan who invited me to drink with him last night. Realization appeared on Wan Qianshan's face. So Master Xiao was the gentleman who refused to answer that lovely lady's knocking last night, who waved the fan in his hand. It was precisely because I wanted to meet the man from last night that I came over this morning. Well, that's a little persistent. All the traveling merchants sat there a while, exchanging goodwill, then bade farewell and left one after another. Not long after, the ship left Rivermet's pier and continued on its way. Liu Tongyi and I at last had time to spare for breakfast. The cook on Liu Tongyi's ship was most impressive. The porridge, the side dishes, and 2 plates of steamed dumplings were all exquisite. I said to Liu Tongyi, that Wan Qianshan just now, who did he look like to you? At first glance, he looks a lot like Vice Minister Yun, said Liu Tongyi. That's right, I said. And when I heard his voice last night, I thought he sounded something like Yun Tang. I told him what had happened last night. But when I took a closer look, the resemblance wasn't as strong. I was wondering whether he could be a relative. Liu Tongyi calmly finished eating a dumpling, then said, Maybe. I seem to recall that Vice Minister Yun had an older brother. I paused. You mean Yun Zai? Yun Yu was the third of Yun Tang's children, with one older brother and one older sister. All three of them were the children of Yun Tang's first wife. This Madame Yun was of low birth, the beloved daughter of some merchant. Before Yun Tang made his name in the imperial examinations, his family was impoverished, and he married this lady in order to support himself. Yun Yu's grandmother was very fussy. When Yun Tang gained fame through scholarly honors, she began to find her daughter-in-law dissatisfying. She simply wasn't well bred enough and lacked the manner of an official's wife. She would embarrass Yun Tang. She couldn't help often regretting that marriage. If she had known her son would attain scholarly honors so young, she wouldn't have approved it. Naturally, Madame Yun felt unhappy listening to this all the time. I mean, wouldn't you? Yun Tang had made a name for himself very young. There was no shortage of beautiful ladies to run to his embrace. He wedded several concubines, each one beautiful and talented. Madame Yun was melancholy. She died in labor while giving birth to Yun Yu's younger brother, and the child also didn't make it. Apparently, Yun Tang was celebrating one of his concubines' birthdays at the time. Yun Yu and his sister were still very young, but Yun Zai, the eldest, was old enough to see the situation for what it was. He bitterly resented his grandmother and Yun Tang. At 13 or 14, he abandoned his studies and left home. He claimed he would have nothing more to do with the Yun family. He hadn't been heard from since. Well, maybe it's his brother. He would be about the same age as Wan Qianshan. If Yun Zai had run away to his maternal grandparents then, he might very well be in business now. Only, I didn't think that Yun Tang's wife's surname had been Wan. Perhaps he had changed it to conceal his identity. I mean, you did the same too, dude. Like, not too unrealistic. Liu Tongyi said, I just heard Wan Qianshan say that he was going to Yangzhou on business. He'll be traveling the same route as us much of the way. If you wish to investigate, there will be plenty of opportunities. Investigating won't be of any use, I said. Even if he is Yun Zai. First, he won't stage a rebellion. Second, he won't avenge Yun Tang. And third, it's the Yun family's private affair. I was only a little curious because the resemblance was so strong when I saw him last night. Liu Tongyi smiled and said nothing else. When I went on deck to stand and get some air, I did see Wan Qianshan's ship, swaying not far from us. I wasn't planning to investigate further, but that evening, when we were once again tied up at the same pier for the night, Wan Qianshan came over of his own accord and arranged to eat with us. Wan Qianshan was always traveling the waterways, making shipments. He was familiar with piers and towns everywhere. He arranged a banquet on his own ship, but a cook came from shore to prepare the meal. The lanterns burned as brightly as midday, the table was laden with dishes, and beautiful women with their bazingas half bared played and sang and poured wine. I hadn't witnessed this kind of production in 3 years. The sight of those women made me a little dizzy. Liu Tongyi, meanwhile, was absolutely unperturbed. Two women pressed up against him and touched him till the corner of his mouth was spasming. The corner of my mouth was spasming, and he still went on drinking wine with an unaltered expression. Wan Qianshan said, "In a little while, I'd like to take you two to a nice place so you can enjoy it with me." I steadfastly declined. I couldn't even enjoy what was in front of my eyes. I didn't think I could stand a nice place. His eyes narrowed in a smile. Wan Qianshan said, "Why not first hear about its features?" He drew closer to Liu Tongyi and me and whispered mysteriously, "Some beauties from Dongying have just arrived at a bathhouse in town. Their massage technique is very unique. Wouldn't it be a pity to miss out?" When he mentioned Dongying beauties, I was a little intrigued. I had always heard that women from Dongying were naturally obedient and would do anything a man asked, with a meekness that had an entirely different appeal from women of the main Midlands. Once, my imperial nephews had been talking of finding a few to play with. Chi Li rubbed his hands together and said that when he sent people over there, he would instruct them to find a few pretty Dongying boys as well to give me a taste of something fresh. I know it's the time, but love how they talk about people, don't you? Different time. Unfortunately, the court's honest officials were remonstrating at the time, saying that wastefulness and extravagance must be curbed. The emperor's edict was issued, and the Dongying girls and boys all melted into thin air. This was a matter of some regret. I bet it was. I hadn't expected an opportunity to make up for those regrets today. "Let me play host," said Wan Qianshan. "Think of it as an opportunity to expand your horizons. How about that?" "How could we let you do that? Master Mei and I have already eaten Wan Xian's banquet. No matter what, when we go into town, it's my turn to treat you." Wan Qianshan clapped. "That's as good as agreeing to go, Xiao Xian. You said it was your treat. You can't go back on your word now." I agreed at once. When the words were out of my mouth, I realized that I had been in too much of a rush to agree. Liu Tongyi probably wouldn't go to a place like that. As I thought this, Liu Tongyi was already saying with a smile, "Then I will come and benefit from the offer along with Wang Xian." I was a little surprised that he was going. I knew very well that he had spent many years at court and had worked in trade for years. He must have seen his share of brothels, but somehow he did not seem to belong in those places. The bathhouse Qianshan had mentioned was called the Garden of Fragrance. I can't remember what book it is, but there was a book where one of the brothels was called like Fragrance Palace. If anyone can remember and puts it in the comments, that would be really cool. If not, don't worry about it. It was in the main street of Dongping City on the shore. Wan Qianshan had only ordered 2 servants to come with us. We went ashore and walked for a short time, then reached the gate. Dongping's shopping district was similar to Rivermet's, but because the city was larger, the main street was much more prosperous. The town had a number of other bathhouses along the Garden of Fragrance, though none were as magnificent. When we entered, an attendant came forward towards us with 2 foreign girls, who twisted their hips and wore garments that left their abdomens bare. The attendant's manner was very gracious. He proffered a booklet containing drawings of the bathhouse's various rooms for us to choose from. According to the drawings, the great hall in the bathhouse featured a big bathing pool in the center, called the Pool of Fragrance, in which many ordinary customers could bathe together. Small rooms with private pools were divided into two areas. One was called Taste of Tranquility, which contained a Hang Shou chamber, a Su Shou chamber, a Capital chamber, and so on, all domestic place names. The other area was called Experience of Serendipity, containing a Persia chamber, a Goryeo chamber, a Java chamber, and so on. They were all in foreign styles. There was even a Nahi chamber. The attendant pointed to an innermost corner and said, "This is our new Dongying chamber. The pool is also the newest. There's just one room with a first-class pool left. It's perfect." "How many bathing pools in a single room?" I asked. "Only one," said the attendant. "But don't worry, sir. Even with three more of you, it wouldn't be cramped." Okay. Let's see how this goes. The first-class Dongying chamber was tastefully appointed, divided into an inner room and an outer room. The outer room was supplied with a table, chairs, mats, and couches. There was fruit and tea on the table, and slender bamboo summer mats laid out on the couches. Though the calligraphy and paintings on the walls were not the works of famous masters, they still gave the room some elegance. 5 girls knelt by the door. They flattened themselves in greeting. Liu Tongyi and I both told them to rise, but the girls remained kneeling. The attendant said, "These are genuine Dongying young ladies. They kneel like this while serving guests. You gentlemen will get used to it." Will they be able to reach up to help us undress?" said Wan Xianshan. The attendant quickly said, "Of course, they'll stand up when they need to." We just had to go through the experience step by step. First, we dismissed the attendant. The floor was of long wooden planks and was extremely clean. When the 3 of us went inside, a girl followed us on her knees with a cloth, wiping the floor. Her clothing was different from the 4 other girls. She seemed to be here especially to perform this role. Wan Qianshan sat on a couch, and a girl came up in front of him on her knees to remove his shoes. Liu Tongyi and I also each had a girl attending us. When it came time to remove our clothes, the kneeling girls did indeed stand. They kept their heads meekly bowed all the while, and their technique was unusually gentle. Snow-white necks emerged from their collars. They had a great deal of foreign charm. I was appreciating the beauty a little, but from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of another girl helping Liu Tongyi remove his outer robe. The lapels of his undergown were half open. In the steam rising from the pool in the inner room, he did not look very much like the usual Liu Tongyi. Here it is. It was like, you do realize, bud, if you're going in here, you're also going to see him at least partially naked. Like, I don't know how this bathhouse is going to be. I don't think it's going to be very bath. But go see him naked. Steam billowed in the inner room. The hot water in the pool was clear enough to see the bottom. Of course it was. Soaking in it was very comfortable. How bath? Yes. And bathhouse, right. The three girls knelt by the pool to serve us. The massage was a little weak, but there was a kind of intimacy to it. Wan Qian Shan was evidently a regular visitor. He leaned back at the poolside, letting the girl behind him massage his neck and shoulders as he chatted to Liu Tongyi and me. Liu Tongyi was next to him, not far away, speaking little as usual, leaning back against the edge of the pool in a slightly indolent posture. Once, I had longed to the point of dreaming about it to have a glimpse of Chancellor Liu unclothed. Now that my long-cherished wish had been fulfilled, it gave me a strange, complicated feeling. I mean, how Bath is this? I guess it's Bath, but Bath plus. Some time later, the fourth girl knelt by the pool holding a tray. On the tray was a silver pitcher and wine cups. Wan Qian Shan drank a cup of wine from the hand of the girl attending him. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her down. There was a splash. The girl fell into his arms and meekly took the initiative to raise her head. Wan Qianshan pulled open her dress in the water. Soon they were entangled. Yeah, that's kind of where I thought this was going. The girl next to me slipped into the water. The scent of wine drifted from her delicate lips. I tasted the wine in her mouth. It was sweet and fragrant, but lacked the rich intoxication of liquor. It was a little like sugar water. I pushed her away slightly and saw the girl attending Liu Tongyi climb atop him. Their lips met. Ooh, how scandalous! I stood, left the pool, and went to the outer room. The girl attending me followed. Seeing me put on my inner robe and sit on a couch, she knelt beside the couch and looked up at me. She looked a little frightened. Right? I feel like this would be really awkward. Just you, your buddy, and a dude you've met maybe a couple times sitting there, chilling in the pool, and everybody smooching. And other. I agree, both Momar Rover and Peacock Pages. I feel like this would be really awkward. So awkward, right? Yeah. 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 Well, and also, like, the unrequited feeling thing going on, like, he says he's let it go. But we also know how he is about saying things. So, like, yeah. Awkward. All right. I waved at her. Go in and attend to those two gentlemen. I'm going to rest here. She obediently left at once. She had actually understood me. I thought that perhaps these girls didn't come from Dongying. They might be local to Dongping City itself. I didn't know when Qianshan and Liu Tongyi would be out. I lay down on the couch and took a nap. In my dreams, I returned to the capital. In a private room at a restaurant, Chu Shun filled my cup with wine. The man across from me pulled the beautiful prostitute beside him into his embrace, raised a jade cup, and said to me with a smile, Does your highness find this wine acceptable? I heard myself say, When Supervisor Yoon has gone to the rare trouble of warming Hua Diao himself, who would say it wasn't good? Well, maybe I'm wrong. When we left the Garden of Fragrance, Wan Qianshan sighed in profound dissatisfaction. Xiao Xiang and Mei Xiang have awfully high standards. Those girls were already better than average, and one of you left after just a touch, while the other only briefly went through the motions. I didn't see any point in staying after that. Oh well. Cupped my hands and apologized. For some reason, I wasn't in the mood today. I said I wanted to play the host, but instead I spoiled Wan Xiang's good time. I'm so sorry. Liu Tongyi's expression had been a little odd for a while. He seemed thoughtful, Now he frowned and said, "The behavior of those Dongying girls at the bathhouse was highly suspect." Of course it was suspect, I said. How could girls just brought over from Dongying understand our language? They must be local girls from Dongping. Liu Tongyi shook his head. That's not what I meant. They kept kneeling on the ground and seemed extremely interested in what was under our clothing. After that, in the pool, they were also very proactive. They seemed to want something. Wan Qianshan and I looked at him simultaneously and coughed. Ahem. Ron, Master May, naturally those girls wanted something. They wanted... Ahem. Wan Qianshan put in, that's right. It was their approval of myself and you two gentlemen that made them want something. Ha ha ha. Liu Tongyi looked at me seriously. You really didn't realize that those girls were deliberately inspecting our bodies? I thought you left early because you'd noticed. He wasn't speaking very loudly. I looked around automatically. It was all right. No one seemed to have heard. Wan Xianshan laughed heartily. Mei Xiang is a remarkable man. You're right, but sadly, we didn't satisfy them. Those girls must be very disappointed. Omar's River. Who knew it would be more awkward out of the bath? Yeah. Oh, man. Liu Tongyi frowned. That's not what I'm talking about. Those girls actually seem to be... Before he could finish, I stopped in my tracks. In front of us, a person strolled slowly out of an alley and stood 10 paces up ahead. The lamps were dazzling. The street was bustling. He put his hands behind his back and looked our way. Uncle, were the Dongying girls to your liking? Even in a bathhouse, Liu Tongyi is still on his game. What a man! Oh my goodness. Ugh. Oh boy. Now which imperial prince, or do we think the emperor came? We figured out. Place your bets. Place your bets. We got nephew here because he's calling him uncle. Which one? The Chitan, Chili, Cheesy. I actually think it might be the emperor, but I feel like he'd probably need more security. That or Chitan. At the angle of the passage in the ship's hold, Liu Tongyi quietly asked me, "What should we serve him?" I glanced at a door that stood ajar. Just avoid any foods he doesn't eat. You ought to know what those are. Liu Tongyi smiled bitterly. How would I know? That is why I'm asking you, Master Shao. You must have attended many banquets, Rancy, I whispered, and probably received plenty of imperial visitations at home. Oh, it is him! The Liu family had produced generations of senior ministers, all honest officials burning with loyalty. Liu Tongyi had worked closely with Chizzy to deal with the conspiracy I had headed. Though his relationship with him was nowhere near as close as Yun Yu, he still ought to know something of Chizzy's preferences and temperament. To tell you the truth, said Liu Tongyi, my family did enjoy imperial grace in the past, so I know something of the late emperor's preferences. But this present one is different from the previous generation. I never had the pleasure of receiving him at home, and when I was occasionally invited to attend banquets at the palace, it was hard to pick up any likes and dislikes. I had once regularly heard it remarked in private that Chizzy surpassed the late emperor in every aspect, except that his tastes weren't as simple. I agreed with this. The fault lay with the Empress Dowager, a very fussy woman who had overly coddled her son, letting him grow up picky. Yeah, the Emperor just rolling up like it's nothing. I agree. Like, I'm like, where's the guard? Where's, like, his security detail? I'm right there with you, Momar's Rover. When Chizzy came to visit Huai Manor as crown prince, everyone treated it like the impending invasion of an enemy army, not daring to slack off. Seating, food, utensils, there could be no mistake in any of it. Later, we had arranged the rooms separated from the main hall by a side hall for the crown prince's particular use. When it came to foods Chizzy avoided, the number was unusually large. I recalled that Huai Manor used to have a notebook with a dense record of everything he wouldn't touch. I heard that when he grew up to better suit the demeanor of a wise ruler, he had changed a great deal, so I didn't know what foods he avoided now. Could only give Liu Tongyi a vague idea. Scallions, ginger, garlic, and such should be put in when they're necessary during cooking, but when the dish is ready, the scallion stalks and ginger slices have to be picked out. For fish, milder flavors, best if there's nothing spicy. It's late, so nothing sweet. Liu Tongyi noted everything down and went to the kitchen himself to deliver instructions. I mean, for a guy who's like, I really don't know his preferences, that's a pretty good listing of like, what does he like or not? And like, here are the specific things. Which kind of says a little bit about their relationship. Like, I know just reading through it, like, he hasn't seemed especially close with this emperor. Like, he's tried, but it's been a very separated relationship. So it's kind of nice to see like he actually knows a little of the more personal aspects, because like he's even stated like, I kind of don't know what this emperor is thinking. I'm just trying to be loyal to him. I appreciate that little humanizing effect right there. I turned. Yeah, their positions made things difficult. I completely agree, Momar's Rover. It didn't help that everyone thought his family was like looking to usurp him. So you probably don't want to be especially close with someone and show them your quote unquote weaknesses if you think they're coming for you. So I get it. It's just kind of nice to see a little more fleshing out of his character. I turned back and entered the half-open door. Chizzy was talking to Wan Xianshan. Wan Xianshan was just saying, "The cloth trade is a profitable one. There are too many connections you have to make at every level, so I thought it over and chose to trade in stones. Sort of wide-ranging business you and your uncle do takes a very open mind." "I don't have very much contact with business," said Chizzy. "It's all my uncle's doing." "A young man with your qualities is sure to surpass his eldest a year or two after taking up the work." Yeah, suppress, huh? Slip of the tongue. He turned his head and smiled at me. "I hope you won't take offense to me saying so, Master Shao." "Of course not," I said. "Master Wan flatters me." I had thought that Wan Xianshan and the likely counterfeit Dong Ying girls were all Chizzy's spies, but from the contents of this conversation, that didn't seem to be the case. If Wan Xianshan were a spy, Chizzy certainly wouldn't be play acting with him here. I entered the room and said, "The kitchen is preparing supper. It will be ready soon." Wan Qianshan rose tactfully. "Well, it's late. I'll take my leave. We'll be traveling together for a time. I'll come visit again when we go ashore another day." I politely asked him to stay for supper. After a few exchanges, I saw Wan Xianshan out. When I returned to the room, Chizzy was standing at the table with his hands behind his back. When he had suddenly appeared in the street, I had been taken completely by surprise. All I could think of was to escort his imperial person to Liu Tongyi's ship. This was my first chance to speak openly. Just then, Liu Tongyi came in with tea. I shut the door. Liu Tongyi put down the tea and performed a full ceremonial obeisance. I also knelt. "Leave it," said Chizzy. "This is no place for it. Rise, official Liu and Imperial Uncle." He slowly strolled towards us. Shang Ping's guess was correct, as expected. Imperial Uncle faked his death. "Official Liu, Shang Ping was seen visiting your home late at night after Imperial Uncle's faked death. Imperial Uncle had your assistance in carrying out his plot." Liu Tongyi knelt again and calmly said, "I have committed treason and ought to be punished with death." "Your Majesty," I said at once, "when I faked my death, I deliberately put on a show in front of Chancellor Liu to fool him. Everything that happened after that, I did it alone. It really had absolutely nothing to do with Chancellor Liu." Chizzy laughed. "Official Liu, that house in Xiankai, Chin Kai Alley in Suzhui is yours, is it not?" Shin Kai Alley? That was the place where I had briefly stayed right after escaping the capital. I slowly turned towards Liu Tongyi. When I woke up after faking my death, I found myself in a secluded little house with no one around but Shang Xiao and his teacher. I hadn't taken the initiative to ask where we were, and only learned later that their conversation that I was in Susuo, and that the lane where the little house was situated was called Chin Kai Alley. The house didn't belong to Shang Xiao's teacher. How could it be Liu Tongyi's? I was still struggling in the dark when Shizzy said, "Official Liu, though you have committed treason, it was by this means that Imperial Uncle avoided dying in a miscarriage of justice. At last there is a way for us to remedy our great error. Balancing merit against fault, you have made a great contribution." Took another 2 steps forward and stooped to raise Liu Tongyi to his feet. "Ranci, we have not known peace day or night during these years without you at our side. Return to court with us." Liu Tongyi bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I have..." "Ranci, how can there be such distance between us? When you insisted on leaving, you must have known that it was very much against our own will that we let you go." Watching the scene before me, in spite of myself, I felt a little enfeebled. Reasonably speaking, I wasn't old enough for my eyes to be betraying me. Chizzy held Liu Tongyi by the arm, looking intently into his eyes. "In recent years, we have produced a number of children while you remain unmarried. We have honored the promise we made to you 3 years ago. Only Shushun insisted on becoming a monk, and we arranged for him to chant scriptures at Pufang Temple. Ranci, it's been 3 years. Isn't it time you returned to our side?" Wait, did I just break this? Sorry. Why does it seem like each person that, like, our dude starts liking, like, the Emperor's like, "You know how we had that secret, like, romance going on behind the scenes? Like, I'm gonna come scoop you up and take you back to my palace again." Like, is everyone gay with the Emperor? Right? Like, what charisma for a guy that really we haven't heard a lot about and kind of oh my gosh. "This is my first time receiving such profound favor from your majesty," said Liu Tongyi. "I am infinitely distressed. I know not what to do." She frowned. "Ranci, were we not sufficiently good to you in the past?" Liu Tongyi said, "Generations of the Liu family have enjoyed imperial benevolence, and your majesty has always treated me with particular kindness. But I am slow and mediocre, unsuited to serve as an official. A vigorous and decisive man like Lord Shang is better able to assist your majesty and bring prosperity to the empire." These circumstances were rather remarkable. I thought at first that there had been something between Chizzy and Liu Tongyi. Very logically, yes, but from Liu Tongyi's behavior, that did not seem to be the case. Well, good. Like, dude needs at least one person that picks him. When Liu Tongyi mentioned Shang Ping, Chizzy's expression stiffened. "We think that he does not bear comparison to you. Lord Shang's conduct is in some ways unique," said Liu Tongyi. "But he is honest and upright, a keen and able investigator, and a worthy pillar of the court." Chizzy looked green. "Leave it. We are well aware which man belongs in which position. Shang Ping is best placed leading the Ministry of Justice or the Court of Judicial Review. As Imperial Chancellor, he suffers, and we suffer to see him. Harsh. It seemed that Chitan had been telling the truth. Shang Ping really had driven Chizzy up a wall over the past few years." Chizzy looked at Liu Tongyi again. "Forget it. Whatever we say now, you will only give a diplomatic refusal. At any rate, we will rest here tonight. You can take your time and think about it." Finally, he released Liu Tongyi's arm. I forgot he was, like, holding on. Yet Liu Tongyi looked alarmed. He looked at me. I knew that this was because Chizzy had said, "We will rest here tonight." But I couldn't speak now. I could only look helplessly back at Liu Tongyi. In the end, it was Liu Tongyi who asked, "Your Majesty, may I be so bold as to inquire, where are your guards?" "Oh," Chizzy said. "We did not want them to spoil the mood for our chat with Ranci." He glanced darkly at me. "An Imperial Uncle." What? Why is he throwing shade at Imperial Uncle? Like, we did nothing wrong. And you're obviously chatting up this guy. Why are you throwing shade at your uncle? Like, he's been proven not guilty. Like, what a punk. Oh. An Imperial Uncle. Dang Tan is in the neighborhood with them. Liu Tongyi's expression relaxed a little bit. Dang Tan had been a deputy captain in the Imperial's personal guard. He must have been promoted in the past couple of years. And he was steady and taciturn, a dependable man. Liu Tongyi bowed and said, "Supper will be brought shortly. I will go have a cabin prepared." Chizzy walked over to the bed and stroked the bed curtains. "Ranci's ship is so elegant. There is no need to go to too much trouble. This room looks good to us." Liu Tongyi looked again at me because this cabin was mine. Doesn't he just wants to take everything from him, doesn't he? Chizzy turned beside the bed and looked around. It seems someone has been staying here. Your Majesty, I had to say, this is my cabin. It is unsuited for hosting your Majesty. Let Master Liu arrange another room. Liu Tongyi, Chizzy sat on the edge of the bed. We are staying in this room. Liu Tongyi was about to try again. I gave a covert tug on his sleeve and said, Then please take some tea and rest, Your Majesty. Allow Master Liu and myself to withdraw for the moment. Chizzy made a noise of assent. What a punk! Like, he really is trying to take everything from his uncle. Liu Tongyi left the cabin with me. In a quiet corner, he whispered, There aren't any attendants in that room. What do I do? That is precisely what we came out here to take care of, I said. Order someone to go up on deck and shout, Are young Master Shao's attendants here? Someone will show up. Have them taken to the room to attend him. Liu Tongyi nodded and hurried off to do it. Soon enough, a sailor brought someone over, a man around 50 years old, wearing the short robe of an ordinary servant, with a perfectly smooth upper lip. When he saw Liu Tongyi and me, he lowered his head and bowed. This man was Wang Yu, a palace eunuch who had always attended Chizzy and who had also served my father in his youth. He had often come to visit Huai Manor. When I saw him, I felt unwontedly moved. Our guy was just minding his own business, trying to buy silk and drink wine. He has the protagonist's curse. Can't have anything. Yeah, I agree, Peacock Page. Like, literally. He is actively trying to, like, go find, like, just an isolated island away from everyone. And, like, they just keep dragging him back in. And he's like, I literally faked my own death to get away from you. To get away from this situation so you could be calm, happy, and chill. Like just let the guy go to his island, drink his wine, and, like, maybe make some profit off of silk. Like, but he was even, like, gonna just, like, be like, hey, I'm done. Like, you take the silk. Like, I'm out. Peace. Like, goodbye. Like, he doesn't even want that much. Like, he'll take the island, some wine, and enough, like, food to eat. Like, he does not care at this point. Oh, man. We couldn't speak out here. Liu Tongyi and I went to his room. When the door was closed, I quietly said to him, Now send someone with Wang Yu to change the bedding and small items for ordinary use. Liu Tongyi took note of this and asked if there was anything else he needed to do. Nothing else, I said. I gestured in the direction of the cabin. He's been like this since he was little. He won't stay in a fresh room out of caution. The Empress Dowager spoiled him. Okay. That makes a little more sense, but he's still being a brat. The Empress Dowager had instructed that each time he came to Huai Manor, anything Chizzy might use must be brought from the palace, and she wouldn't let him sit in a room that had been specially prepared. She insisted that only a room in regular use would do, as if she was afraid that a freshly arranged room would have some mechanism for assassination. Later, when she came to believe that my mother and I weren't so stupid that we would assassinate the crown prince at Huai Manor, she finally allowed a room to be set aside for Chizzy to rest in, and even that had once been my usual retiring room. I could get it, but also just, like, come on, dude. Liu Tongyi smiled. It looked to me like a different smile from his usual one, so I couldn't help asking, What is it? Nothing, said Liu Tongyi. Just that I used to hear the Empress Dowager complain at court that His Majesty had some bad habits that he'd picked up by going to Huai Manor so often and being spoiled by Prince Huai. I still think he needs new nephews. Yeah, it couldn't hurt, Peacock Pages. It really couldn't hurt. Chiton is at least, kind of redeeming himself a bit. Like, he actually cared. He cried. Yeah, he's still not getting the actual Labubu. He's still getting a Lafufu. But, he might earn a Lafufu soon. Chiton, he doesn't even get the Lafufu. Yeah, one steals his money and the other his room. They're not great. I agree. No Mars Rover. Maybe, he'll find an orphan that'll love him forever, and he'll just go on from there. Yep. Just living in a world of Lafufus. Yep. Well, I mean, he was bad at picking out antiques anyway. He'd probably pick the Lafufus. Oh. Spoiled by Prince Huai. The Empress Dowager had said that. This was slander. When the Crown Prince or the Emperor came to visit, wouldn't it have been a greater offense not to treat him well? Smiling, Liu Tongyi said, though when it comes to calling a person by his courtesy name out of nowhere, His Majesty and Prince Huai really are somewhat alike. I was surprised. Looked at Liu Tongyi and blurted out, Ranci. I'm going to send someone to change the bedding, said Liu Tongyi. He turned and left. I watched him leave. Some things were weighing on my mind, but this wasn't the time to ask. Chizzy ate a light supper. He didn't say it was bad, which meant it was all right. By the time he had been assisted in washing up, it was already nearly daybreak. Chizzy was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, as if he had no intention of going to sleep. Fortunately, Wang Yu was there to persuade him, and he finally went to bed to get some rest. After he fell asleep, Wang Yu quietly came to the new cabin Liu Tongyi had arranged for me. He conveyed His Majesty's verbal edict in order for me to enter the imperial presence after I had breakfast. That evening, I strolled to the fore of the ship and stood there. The river was wide. Ruddy clouds filled half the sky. Liu Tongyi came to stand beside me. Another Shichen will reach the pier where we'll be stopping for the night. There was no one around. I turned my head to look at him. Ranci. Liu Tongyi looked at me. I call you that because what I want to ask isn't addressed to Master Mei, but it isn't very appropriate to address you by your formal title, and just using your full name might be considered rude. I hope you don't mind, Ranci. Liu Tongyi froze. Then, smiling, he said, It seems Master Shao took my joke to heart last night. A form of address is nothing more than that. There's no need to worry about it. Please, speak openly. Something was different about him in the sunset glow. I remembered that, once, I had poured out my feelings to him by the light of sunset. This was a memory so old it was nearly buried in the earth. I said I have something to ask, but that isn't very apt. I've been considering it for a while, and I don't know what to say. About Chinkai Alley. I don't know what happened, and I don't know how you helped me, nor why you wanted to help me. In short, thank you. I didn't say the words thank you very weightily, but they were the heaviest words I had spoken in my life. Liu Tongyi's expression stilled. After a while, he said, There are some things it would perhaps be better to speak of openly and in their entirety. I wonder what His Majesty spoke of when he bade your Highness Prince Huai enter his presence today. Would your Highness permit me to speak of what happened in the past from the beginning? Please do. I sighed and said, Rancy has never been willing to call me Chang Jun. Prince Huai is dead. Go ahead. What would it hurt? Liu Tongyi froze. I found that this expression of slight confusion made him look better than usual, more domestic. Finally, with an indescribable expression, Liu Tongyi mumbled, Chang Jun. I laughed in spite of myself. The atmosphere relaxed. But then Liu Tongyi schooled his expression into solemnity and said to me, This is not a good place to talk. Can we go to my room? Of course I agreed. I went with Liu Tongyi to his room. He closed the door and made tea. In a mild voice, he quietly recounted to me. Since I was young, I often heard my grandfather say that Huai Manor's power and influence were overwhelming, and disaster was sure to come from that quarter one day. If any member of our family had the good fortune to be appointed to office, we had to undertake to curb Prince Huai's power. Later, I received scholarly honors and entered the court. And one day, I received an invitation to attend a banquet with Lord Liu. Lord Fish? Really? Liu means little fish. Or fish. That's funny. And a number of other honest officials of the court. At the banquet, I learned that as a precaution against Prince Huai, they had already planted a spy beside him. My position wasn't high then. I did not participate. It was years later that a credible secret report claiming that Yun Tang and Wan Qin were planning a rebellion. Lord Liu was dead by then, and the others had been pushed out and transferred elsewhere. I was already at the court of judicial review, received His Majesty's summons to confer with His Highness Prince An and a number of other important ministers. I said to His Majesty that while Yun Tang and Wan Qin had great influence, they had little military force at their disposal. What had given them the boldness to rebel? Was there something we were unaware of? And it was I who said that the greatest suspicion lay with Huai Manor. His face was a little pale. He went on speaking. When Prince An and the other ministers had withdrawn, His Majesty kept me back alone. He asked whether I had any other views. I could tell that His Majesty did not want to suspect Prince Huai. In the interest of caution, I said to His Majesty that I would not speculate in the absence of evidence. But His Majesty said that he was already certain. That then he had me meet someone. That person was Yun Yu. Continued listening in silence. It was then that I learned that Lord Yun's political opinions differed from his father's. Only His Majesty and I knew of this. His Majesty already had evidence against Yun Tang and Wan Qin. It was only Huai Manor's power that had yet to be sufficiently plumed. Lord Liu had used his own daughter to spy on Prince Huai, but after years of probing, there was still no concrete evidence. Therefore, I said to His Majesty that I had always heard Prince Huai was not interested in women. Wouldn't it be more suitable to investigate along another line? I recalled that when I said this, Lord Yun laughed and said, That is a brutal tactic. Then he said to His Majesty, Seems we can depend on Lord Liu to become a pillar of the court. Some time later, I became Imperial Chancellor. Still later, Chushun. I frowned. I remember you saying that you didn't send Chushun to me. With a mocking smile, Liu Tongyi said, But I may as well have. Chushun used to be a laborer at the examination center. He couldn't stand up to the beatings and humiliation, so he tried to drown himself. but I happened to run into him. I often gave him books to read, and I was the one who taught him to play the zither. He was intelligent and well-mannered. Later, his sister redeemed his bond and brought him to her brothel to be a musician. He said to me that, as I was an official of the court, it wouldn't be good for people to learn that we were friends, so he wouldn't come to see me again. Still later, I learned that he was close to your highness. I went to see him, and I was spotted by Lord Yun. And that was why Yun Yu had gone out of his way to make Liu Tongyi. Hello? Are we back? Is that better? I saw there was a little sign up above that said, like, internet was unstable. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right, beautiful. I even reset the internet before this. Like, crazy, crazy internet. At least I'm getting better about, like, coming back pretty quickly. All right. I'm going to restart back with a mocking smile. Or no. Still later, I learned that he was close to your highness. I went to see him, and I was spotted by Lord Yun. And that was why Yun Yu had gone out of his way to make Liu Tongyi and Chu Shun perform a duet. Liu Tongyi continued. Chu Shun collected a heap of evidence against Prince Huai for me. Lord Yun once said something incisive about me, that I'm always sanctimoniously directing others, but I don't even have the guts to risk myself. I was astonished. Do you mean that assassination attempt was something you and Yun Yu arranged, so you would risk yourself in order to help Yun Yu gain my confidence? Liu Tongyi went on. Later still, Prince Huai was arrested. I had not arranged a spy. I let Lord Yun do that. Lord Yun arranged to be the spy himself, and at last captured Prince Huai during the rebellion. I only made my appearance when it came time for the interrogation. Your Highness, Prince Huai admitted everything, confessed everything, but I realized that something was wrong. Apart from the evidence Lord Yun and Prince An were aware of, there was still absolutely no other evidence of your guilt. This was not the way a rebel ought to have left things. Moreover, your Highness Prince Huai confessed too much. Yu Tongyi finally looked at me. His gaze was empty. When your Highness Prince Huai said you wanted to see me, I thought that there would be some clues, but instead your Highness committed unaliving right before my eyes. The nails of his right hand turned white as he gripped his teacup, but he turned his lips into a faint smile. So, regardless of anything I might have done in the matter of Chinkai Alley, your Highness Prince Huai still need to say nothing to me. If your Highness really had died then, even if I had, myself, I wouldn't have had the gall to go to the underworld. Liu Tongyi put a hand to his forehead. I hadn't yet told your Highness Prince Huai of these things because I wished to avoid having to reveal the truth behind the whole sequence of events. Perhaps your Highness will think that I've been putting on an act around you, but in reality, I just didn't know what to do. In this whole business, I've played the most sordid role. I couldn't help myself. Rancy, Liu Tongyi continued. Perhaps people like this often appear in my family, always boasting of our loyalty, but more despicable than the so-called schemers. Your Highness may not have been aware of an ancestor of mine once repaid a youthful emperor with his own twin brother. The true emperor hanged himself in the very cell where your Highness was held. Then my grandfather, during his time as Imperial Chancellor, constantly made trouble for the late Prince Huai. Then there's me. I was no loyal minister, and neither was I an honest man. I didn't know what I amounted to. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. We're gonna just turn that off because we have like 2.5 chapters left, so it's a little too many. Well done with the chirpy chirpies. I didn't know what I amounted to. I could no longer remain at court. That is why I resigned my position and took to wandering, changed my name, and went into trade. Liu Tongyi raised his cup. A merchant is crafty and cares only for profit. I suppose this occupation suits my nature. He tipped back his head and downed the tea in his cup as though it were wine. And did Feng Gua Ran also become a merchant because merchants are crafty and care only for profit? I said. Liu Tongyi looked blank when I said this. Feng Hao Ran was the main character of the legend of the Zither hero of the late Su dynasty. He had been created by the scholar of the Wind and Rain, the author of the book. The scholar of Wind and Rain's other works were mediocre, but Feng Hao Ran's tale stood out among them in terms of fame among writers of romances. He didn't match up to Bai Ruyi or the Mad Drunkard, but Feng Hao Ran, along with Xiao Yu in The Scholar of the Red Leaves of the Western Hills, The Divine White Jade Sword, and Tan Yizui in The Mad Drunkard's Drunken Odyssey, were together considered the three heroes of literature. I had greatly admired them as a child. I said seriously to Liu Tongyi, "You're the same as me. We both went into trade in imitation of Feng Hao Ran. Even the names Xiao Kai and Mei Yong were copied in part from the aliases Feng Hao Ran uses. If you disparage yourself like this now, aren't you also bringing myself and Feng Hao Ran down with you?" Liu Tongyi looked straight at me. He was much more adorable now than with his usual calm act. That's kind of cute. Okay. Master Mei, since it makes you uncomfortable when I call you by your courtesy name, then this is what I'll call you. I don't want to waste any more time talking around things. In your speech, apart from self-reflection and self-disparagement, there is another implication, which is that you don't want to return to court as an official. Liu Tongyi's expression stilled again. I said, "Still another implication is that you want to tell me that I owe you no favor for saving me." Everything he had said, apart from what concerned the assassination attempt, were things I had guessed at the time. I'd even had my suspicions on the subject of Chu Shun. He had put all of this together and told me about it because, after seeing the Emperor, I would naturally have understood a few of the key steps in the sequence. I gave a couple of bitter laughs and sighed in jest. In the end, whether we're Prince Huai and Chancellor Liu or Trader Xiao and Master Mei, there will never come a day when I call you Rancy and you call me Cheng Shun. Liu Tongyi's expression changed repeatedly. Finally, with a bitter laugh, he said, "Your Highness Prince Huai is as impressive as expected." I went a step further to set him at ease. Prince Huai Jingwei Yi has been dead a long time. What happened is in the past. A minor merchant like myself has no place acting as a spokesperson for the court. Do not worry. Master May. We were nearly at the pier where we would be staying the night. A leisurely evening breeze blew in through the half-propped window sash. I looked out over at the river cloaked in dusk and recalled the lines Liu Tongyi had favored me with. With his affections at Mount Wu engaged, what need King Xiang in dreams to seek Jiangnan? The ship slowly pulled in. People were densely packed on shore in another scene of prosperity. A fishing boat sailed past our ship. There was a big catch of crabs in the net in the fisherman's hands. I was right. In another month, it would be the Mid-Autumn Festival. The crabs were beginning to grow fat. Liu Tongyi stood. Now that we're here, I'm going to His Majesty's rooms to pay my respects and make suitable arrangements. On impulse, I abruptly asked Liu Tongyi, "Why don't you get married?" Liu Tongyi froze. Then he smiled. "I'm used to being on my own." "If there's no one on your mind, you should hurry up and find someone," I advised. "You won't feel it now, but once you get past 30 and find you have no one to eat mooncakes and New Year's Eve dinner with during the holidays, you'll feel the lack. A man like Master May is sure to be able to find a gentle, virtuous woman with both beauty and talent if he likes." Smiling, Liu Tongyi said, "All right, I'll find one in the future." Facing the dusky light filtering in through the window, he looked at me and sighed. "Actually, I don't understand it. I meant to talk to Master Xiao about the past. How did we end up on this subject?" "We've been over what happened 3 years ago, again and again," I said. "What can come of bringing it up again? It's better to get a hold of the present." Put my hands behind my back and looked out the window. "Are you going to tell me you've never thought of a poem while watching the sunset?" "At the moment, I'm only thinking of how to arrange His Majesty's dinner tonight," Liu Tongyi said seriously. The ship approached the shore. The Emperor was not planning to make landfall here and return to the capital. He said that the scenery was pleasant on the river and the local customs along the way were charmingly simple. He wanted to go for a stroll. In spite of myself, I felt sympathy for Wang Yu, Dang Tan, and that crowd of guards. The Emperor ordered Liu Tongyi to accompany him on his walk. I remained aboard ship and ate a sumptuous dinner on my own. Next to us, Wang Xianshan's ship was once again fully illuminated. Waves of music and laughter escaped and came my way. When the night watches began, the Emperor returned, having eaten dinner on shore. Liu Tongyi gave me a quick greeting, then went to arrange the Emperor's bath. He just had time to drink a little tea and get some rest before the Emperor finished his bath and summoned him to his room to chat. I strolled to the fore of the ship to catch the breeze. Beside us, Wan Xianshan's ship was bright and rancorous. Some boats were drifting quietly beside the ship. Dang Tan and the guards must have been on them. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. All was peaceful. I recalled one mid-autumn festival after my mother passed. The princess said she was going to her parents' house for the holiday, and I allowed it. When it was nearly dark, I looked at the sky from the veranda, thinking that I was the only one in this courtyard to eat and drink and enjoy the enormous round moon. I really felt unbearably lonely. Suddenly, I was notified that Lord Yun had come. I watched as he was brought over by a servant. From a distance, he smiled and said to me, "Why is your Highness Prince Huai standing here alone on the Mid-Autumn Festival?" Perhaps it was then that I had the realization. Everyone needs a companion. I did want to have such a person by my side. He was no one in my he was no one in my heart but me with no one in my heart but him, steady and enduring, always together, sharing our meals, sleeping in the same bed, celebrating holidays together. But finding this might be easy or might be hard. It was a matter of fate. I returned to the ship's hold. Liu Tongyi was still entertaining the emperor. I went to my room to sleep. That night, I had a dream. In my dream, I was old, with a beard hanging down to my chest, unable to straighten my back. Leaning on a cane, I stood in the courtyard of Huai Manor, looking around in a daze, thinking that there was something I had forgotten, but was unable to remember anything. Suddenly, an old woman was standing in front of me, a gold pin in her hair, dressed in fine clothes, her hair gray and her face wrinkled. She was looking at me resentfully. Jing Wei Yi, I never thought I would spend my whole life with you like this. Is this what you call growing old and gray together? I looked closely at her and determined that she might be the princess. She laughed sadly. Her features slowly became youthful until she looked as the princess had looked before. She stared at me and said emphatically, Jing Wei Yi, though you have possessed my body all my life, you will never have my heart. I was petrified. I recalled in bewilderment that I never had possessed the princess's body. Wanted to tell her this, but I couldn't speak. The princess and the scene in front of me blurred. Someone was calling, Your Highness, Your Highness! Eyes flew open, and I found myself lying in bed. Beside me was the sound of weeping. I turned my head. Someone was sitting at my bedside, wiping away tears as she looked at me. It was the princess again. The servants crowding behind her were also wiping their tears. Sobbing, the princess said, Your Highness, at last you're awake. Is there anything you want to say? And any last words, you could say them, she sniffled. I opened my mouth and still could not utter a sound. My whole body felt heavy. My arms and legs did not seem to belong to me. I couldn't move. The princess grabbed my hand, which lay outside the covers. Your Highness, there's something that I must tell you. I've wronged you. Though we've been together so many years, I never loved you. Before I married you, I was already in love with another. I'm sorry. I tried, but I couldn't forget him. My heart is the only thing I could not give you. I shuddered. With a start, I sat up, sweat soaking through my sleeping robe. This time, I really was awake. Hang on, I just have to blow my nose. I drank some cold tea, donned an outer robe, and I left the hold. The night breeze was crisp. It gradually dried my sweat-soaked inner robe. It was all right. It had only been a dream. Such a thing could only happen in a dream. Now, no one would grow old with me. I sighed morosely. From a distance, someone asked, Is that Master Shao standing on the bow at night? I looked to the side and saw a man standing on deck at the fore of Wan Xianshan's big ship. He saluted me by lantern light. If Master Shao is having trouble sleeping, why not come aboard my ship and drink with me? There is wine on this ship too, I said. Will Master Wan come here to drink? Very well, said Wan Xianshan. He turned and clapped his hands. At once, a boat was prepared for him. Shortly after, he was standing on the boat, slowly floating over. He came up on deck and went into the ship's hold with me. I trimmed the candle wick to brighten the flame. He sat at the table, and I filled the cup in front of him from a pitcher. He looked at it and frowned. This seems to be tea. I sat down across from him. Tea is not like wine, and you, Lord Yun, are not like your brother. The man across from me laughed and peeled a diaphaneously thin object off his face, revealing Yun Yu's features. On the left side of his face was a slightly swollen bruise and a cut at the corner of his mouth. He looked a bit of a mess. Surprised, I said, "What happened?" Yun Yu pointed to the injuries to his face. "Oh, this? My brother punched me." "Why did he do that?" Yun Yu's lips tilted up. "First, on account of family matters. He resents our father, but still disapproves of my actions. Second, when I've come running like this, he can't resist calling me a lackey and casting aspersions on my moral character." He tossed the mask on the table. "I told him that since he'd already punched me, he might as well let me travel with him." I glanced at the mask. "I was wondering how you'd gotten your hands on a thing like this. So it's your brother's." Yunu smiled. "Why is there always like a human skin face mask? Like, there's always at least one. I mean, this one's probably not actually human skin, but like, okay." Yunu smiled. I couldn't stand the sight of the injuries to his face any longer. I rooted around in my baggage and found a box of balm. "This will reduce the swelling and bruising. Apply some after you've washed your face." Yun Yu took the balm and thanked me. In the dim light, I looked into his eyes and asked a little uncertainly, "Weren't you managing the flooding in Changsha? Why had he suddenly turned up here? Why had he been standing at the fore of the ship in the middle of the night? Why had he spoken to me, invited me to drink with him?" The candle flame leapt in Yunyu's eyes, making it hard for me to read his mood. After a while, he finally said, "I received a message from Zhang Ping while in Changsha. He was worried Dang Tan and the rest were unreliable, so I handed over responsibility for managing the flooding to Prince Dai, traveled non-stop to get here." So that was it. "His Majesty is asleep," I said. "This evening he went out to the market with Liu Tongyi and others. There were no incidents." Yunyu nodded. "I am aware of this. I caught up in the evening. It seems His Majesty still wants Liu Tongyi to return to court." That was Liu Tongyi's affair. I couldn't comment on it, so I brushed past and changed the subject. "You're not sleeping. Are you really standing watch through the night like a guard?" Yunyu yawned. "That's right. When the ship is moored for the night, greater caution is required. During the day, when the ship is in motion, I can rest a little." As I was looking out, I happened to see Master Shao standing at the fore of the ship. Wanted to invite him to drink with me. "Fair," I said. "Two people talking through the night is more pleasant than staying up alone. But making yourself up to look like your brother was a superfluous gesture. Your features and voice are very different. If even I could spot it at a glance, His Majesty would certainly have no trouble." Smiling, Yunyu said, "That's true." He put the mask away. He and I drank tea and chatted idly till daybreak. He spoke of interesting events at court over the past few years, and I talked about things I'd picked up while wandering. At dawn, Yunyu made to leave. I kept him back. Why not have breakfast before you go? You can see His Majesty that way. Perhaps when he wakes up, he'll hear that you came aboard, and it wouldn't look good if you didn't go visit. All right, said Yunyu, and he stayed a while longer. When it was fully light, I figured that Chizzy would be awake and was about to go out to check when there came a gentle knock at the door. Master Zhao, are you up? It was the voice of one of the ship's servants, and I said I was. Some time passed, and I heard another knock. I went to open the door. Two workmen came in carrying a bathing tub, which was full of slightly steaming water. I was perplexed. My face spasmed in spite of myself. The two workmen put the wooden tub down in the center of my room, then bowed their heads and left. I called them back. I always bathe before bed. Why have you brought water in the morning? One of them had bowed, said, it was the general manager who instructed us to prepare it. Yunyu snorted, then burst out laughing. I stood next to the bathing tub, caught between the equally inappropriate options of sending it away and letting it stay. Smiling, Yunyu said, the water's already here. It would be a waste to send it away. Just take another bath. I'm going to pay my respects. He stood and left languidly. I had no choice but to wash again. I was a little tired after staying up all night, and the bath didn't make me feel much more alert. On my way out the door, I accidentally bumped my leg badly against a chair. I hobbled a little when I left. Oh my gosh, they're gonna think they slept together. And he was the bottom. Welcome back to Misunderstanding Central. Oh man. It's this guy and his luck are so shit. In the hall, Liu Tongyi was sitting alone, drinking tea. I looked around and didn't see Yunyu, and I didn't see Chizzy either. Liu Tongyi said, your nephew and little young Master Wan have just gone to the Wan merchant ship. He called for breakfast. The breakfast porridge and side dishes were quite bland. I asked for a bowl of chili sauce to dip my dumplings in. Liu Tongyi chopsticks paused in mid-air as he served himself. The kitchen forgot to prepare it. He picked up some bamboo shoots and put them into his bowl of porridge. After eating, my leg still hurt. I had given Yunyu my balm last night, so I said to Liu Tongyi, do you have any kind of balm or tincture for bumps and bruises? Liu Tongyi looked at me with a complicated expression and said calmly, yes, I'll have someone bring it. Shortly, a servant brought the balm. Liu Tongyi took it and had a look. Why did you bring this one? He said. Go bring the snow balm from the healer's hall to Master Xiao's room. I looked at the bottle. It was bruised liniment made by the Academy of Internal Medicine, an excellent product, so I said, this will do. Liu Tongyi gave me another unreadable look. This balm contains mint. Better switch to something milder. Enlightenment immediately came to me. My face spasmed again. I simply picked up my robe and raised my pant leg. I just bumped my leg. Balm with mint is perfect. Liu Tongyi again looked at me with a complicated expression. He said nothing. The servant handed the medicine bottle to me. Oh, he totally thought that they banged. The morning was hot. I went back to my cabin to get a fan and saw right away a box of medicine on the table. On the lid of the box were the impressively carved words, Healer's Hall. I couldn't take it any longer. I grabbed the box of balm, put it into my robes, and went to see Liu Tongyi. He was reading in his room, his brow tightly furrowed, his expression severe. I closed the door and solemnly said, Master May, Lord Yun and I only drank tea and chatted last night. And anyway, what came next was embarrassing to say, I said it anyway, and said it proudly. Since I was first inducted into the mysteries, I, Jingwei Yi, have never taken the passive role. Just putting it right out there. I am a top. I am a self-proclaimed top, and this is something that I am proud of. I've never bottomed. I bet he would bottom for these two. Let's be real. Liu Tongyi put down his book. He seemed at a bit of a loss. The fact that he feels like he needs to clear that up. Right, Peacock Pages? Like, I mean, yes, he's limping. I knew as soon as he hit his leg, like, it was going to be a misunderstanding because his luck is that shit. It does say something about him, Mars Rover. Doth protest too much, I believe, at least for these men. Liu Tongyi put down his book. He seemed at a bit of a loss. His face and neck flushed slightly. It was the first time I had seen him incapable of coming up with a response. It was an interesting look on him. I went to his table and sat down, picked up a teapot, and poured myself a cup. There was never love between me and Yun Yu, and all there is now is guilt. I'm going to Java in a few days. Some entanglements that either never existed or have already ruptured will bear no more fruit. When I said this, I felt a slight stinging and ache in my heart. In fact, it was only last night that I had entirely given up on certain ideas. I had once believed that Yun Yu might feel something for me. He and I had been drinking companions, fellow revelers. There had been, at least to it, some kind of feeling there. That night in Chengshou had brought a bit of life to my dead hopes. It was only last night that I had finally come to a full understanding. Yun Yu had never had feelings for me. I ought to have known it that day at Yuhua Pavilion. That day, Yun Yu was drowning his sorrows in wine, but when I held him, he was rigid. I could feel the fine hairs on his skin standing up under my palms and his irrepressible shudders and goose flesh. People always lie to themselves, but no matter how much you lie, there always remains a line you cannot cross. Therefore, you can lie to yourself so much that even you believe it, but you still cannot make the lie true. Liu Tongyi finally recovered his usual manner and picked up his book. I should not speak of others' personal affairs, but to the best of my knowledge, Lord Yun and His Majesty have never had that relationship that some people guess. When he said this, I froze. My heart shuddered. I see, I said. Liu Tongyi was still holding his book. Lord Yun was under imperial orders to manage the flooding in Chengshou. Even upon learning that His Majesty was here, it would have been most natural for Prince Dai to come. If His Majesty wished to see Lord Yun, or Lord Yun needed to speak to His Majesty about something, it might have waited until after they returned to the capital. At this point, he looked at the book and said nothing more. Yes, I said. Liu Tongyi was still holding the book. He stared at the book, and I stared at him, waiting for him to look at me. He was very persistent. I waited for ages, and his gaze remained stubbornly glued to the book. He even turned a page. I made conversation. What are you reading? Is it so fascinating? I craned my neck to look. An almanac. Is Master May planning to open a new shop? Do you need to pick an auspicious date? swift look of distress passed over Liu Tongyi's face. It was only for an instant, but I still caught it. However, with composure, he shut the almanac. There are some things I need to check dates for. Smiling, I said. Master May's explanation to me just now was very much in the style of the Court of Judicial Review. Here I thought that those who had held office at the Court of Judicial Review weren't particular about dates. Only Zhang Ping is not particular, said Liu Tongyi. I rotated my teacup and said to him, I think that what Master May said earlier is very true. I wonder if Master May might have any other opinions to share with me. Expression still composed, Liu Tongyi said. Also, arriving here and not going directly to see His Majesty isn't Lord Yun's style. As our eyes met, I felt a riot of emotion. Everything Liu Tongyi was saying had already occurred to me, only a thought flashed through my mind. Quickly, I said to Liu Tongyi, Oh yes, books often mention masks to change your appearance. Have you seen such things in reality? Liu Tongyi nodded. Yes, there have been some cases involving so-called gentlemen of the road. The Court of Judicial Review has some in its storehouse. I asked Liu Tongyi whether he knew how long it took to make a mask. Liu Tongyi thought about it. Back when I once went out of my way to verify that. Making a mask is very time-consuming. Even the greatest master craftsman would need a minimum of 6 to 7 shichen to complete one. So that's, I think a shichen is like 2 hours approximately. So 12 to 14 hours. Is it possible to start one at sundown and have it ready by midnight? I asked. Liu Tongyi shook his head. Impossible. The mask must be designed, then a mold created, then the mask must be molded. Some use human skin, but most use a special kind of adhesive wax. Then it must be dried and modified. One way or another, there is no way it can be completed within a couple of shichen. I leapt to my feet. Master May, can you do me another favor? Approach Wan Xianshan's ship. I have urgent business aboard it. As fast as you can. Liu Tongyi also stood. His eyes paused on my face. All right, he said. I gotta adjust a little bit. My feet are falling asleep. Wan Qianshan's merchant ship was traveling ahead of Liu Tongyi's ship, with boats carrying Imperial guards in between. As Liu Tongyi's ship swiftly gained on the Wan ship, the Imperial guards thought that our ship had been boarded by assassins targeting Shizi. Fighting nearly broke out. Then Deng Tan brought people aboard himself to search the ship and determined all was well. Finally, the ship was permitted to approach. Up ahead, Wan Xianshan's vessel temporarily pulled in to shore, and we stopped. Seeing that they were willing to stop, I heaved a sigh of relief. Accompanied by Deng Tan and a number of guards, I jumped aboard Wan Xianshan's ship. A man with the look of a steward came forward. I grabbed him and asked, Where are Master Wan and his little brother? The steward said ponderously, Do you mean young Master Dao Shui, sir? He and our master are sitting with the young gentleman who came this morning. Have you come to see the young gentleman, sir? Deng Tan was muttering beside me. Notice up ahead, notice up ahead, notice up ahead. I ignored this and said to the steward, No, I have come to see Master Wan's little brother, young Master Wan Dao Shui. As I said this, I stepped right into the hold. Deng Tan and some guards followed me closely. Notice up ahead, notice up ahead, notice up ahead. I glimpsed a page who had been on deck just now and slipped off to somewhere rejoin us and hurry towards the door. Just as the page was caught at the door, I pushed the door open. Saw Chizzy, Yun Yu, and Wan Xian Shan seated in chairs. There was also a group of dancing girls standing frozen. Chizzy raised his eyebrows. Wan Xian Shan stood, laughing. Before anyone could speak, I strode in and grabbed Yun Yu by the arm. Yun Yu had still been seated. Now he stood and looked directly at me. What is it? Naturally. I want to talk to you, I said. The corners of Yun Yu's lips turned up slightly. Oh, what is it that calls for Master Zhao to? I drew close to his ear and whispered, Come outside with me. We can't talk here. I pulled him out of the room with me. Yun Yu froze for a moment, then allowed me to pull him out. We left the ship's hold and went up on deck. Yun Yu finally came to a halt. Any further and we'll be in the river. Where are you taking me? You might as well jump with me, I said. Yun Yu's expression stilled. Smiling, he said, That won't do. I'm a poor swimmer, and I won't enjoy being a water ghoul. Actually, I can't swim either, I said. Just want to see, before you and I drown, which of us tells the truth first. Yun Yu looked at me again and said, If we open our mouths, the water will get in. How will we be able to say anything? We can say it in our hearts, I said, and the other will still hear. Smiling, Yun Yu said, Perhaps this technique is written of in a new romance Master Shao has read. I haven't read it, and it is beyond me. There is a retiring room on the ship. The Yu Tongyi's ship might not have anything as reliable. Why don't we go there and have a talk? Very well, I said. With me aboard, Deng Tan and the others, out of concern for His Majesty's safety, invited Shizhi to come aboard the Yu Tongyi's ship. They're still worried about him being a problem after everything? Seriously? One sec. I can hear myself getting raspy. Okay. After Chizzy left, the ship slowly continued forward. Yun Yu took me to a cabin with empty rooms on either side. A good place to talk. Wine or tea? Yun Yu asked. I thought about it. Wine, please. Yun Yu smiled and called for good Hua Diao to be brought. He closed the door, and the fragrance of the wine hovered in the cabin. He poured and asked me, I suppose we can talk now. What did Master Shao want with me? I came to see you so I could say one thing, I said. Suaya, I love you. Yun Yu's hand paused in midair. He put down his wine cup and stared at me. I've been to many places these past few years, seen many people. I thought I had forgotten the past, but it won't stay forgotten. You could fool anyone but yourself. I thought you had been lying to me from the first. But why did you come to see me when we were in Changshou? Why did you appear last night? Life is short and bitter, and souls and reincarnation are unknowable. Perhaps this one life is all there is. Can't keep lying to myself, so... Yun Yu's expression was unfathomable. He picked up. So you had Liu Tongyi chase after the ship so you could come aboard, and said you wanted me to jump into the river with you, and now all of this? I gripped his wrist. Suaya. Yun Yu looked into my eyes. The corners of his lips twitched. I don't believe you. I frowned. Why not? Must I dig out my heart before you'll believe me? Even the village boys have worn that line threadbare, Yunyu sneered. Your Highness Prince Huai's joke is pretty funny. I looked at him with my brows drawn together, then simply pulled him up, took aim at his lips, and closed the distance. Yunyu's body stiffened in my embrace. Heedless, I pried his teeth apart. Soon Yunyu responded. His body gradually relaxed. I released him, caught my breath, and said quietly, Now, do you believe me? Yunyu was still watching me with an unreadable expression. No, he spat. Why not? I said. Why did you give me that pill? Yunyu said slowly. My heart stuttered. When the rebellion had been close at hand, Yunyu had come to me one day for a heart-to-heart talk. He said to me there was no knowing whether our uprising would succeed. If it failed and we were captured, we were certain to suffer all the world's tortures. It was best to be prepared. My heart had gone cold. I asked him whether he had made preparations. Yunyu said that of course he had. He even took out a medicine vial and showed it to me. It contained an extremely potent poison. I watched him drip a bit on the stone table, and its surface bubbled. I said to him at once, That one's no good. Drinking it will be painful. I took him to my bedroom, and from a hidden drawer took 2 pills, which I showed to him and said, This is a secret drug I ordered made, guaranteed to be fatal, as well as fast and painless. A true marvel. I threw his vial away, found another one, put 1 pill inside it, and gave it to him as a precaution. Yunyu accepted it solemnly. Yunyu looked at me coldly now and said, It was indeed immediately effective. It was quick, and the effects were impressive. I had the run so badly I didn't leave the latrine for a day and a night. My palms broke into a cold sweat. Why would you take it? With no expression on his face, Yunyu said, I have never liked owing a debt. It was I who tricked you, so it was only natural that I make it up to you with my life. But it seemed to me that you were telling me that my life wasn't good enough to pay the debt. I laughed coldly. I thought then that there was truly no call for that. A loyal and heroic subject like your Highness was certain to be deified after death. Well, I was sure to go to hell. Even if there is a life after death, you and I would never meet. Suddenly, I wasn't sure what I could do. You knew. What kind of a person are you? How can I ever understand you? Yunyu looked at me again. There was another change in his expression. He laughed helplessly. I saw that note. Thank you for enlightening me. I had been afraid that when Yunyu was captured, he would do something drastic before I could get to him. So I had hidden a last trick in the vial. Inside the lining was a note I had written. Letting loose clears the mind. Let all things loose. Yunyu sighed. I simply couldn't understand how the man who could do such a thing would choose to kill himself. It was only 3 years later, when someone saw you at Liu Tongyi's firm and reported it to the court, that I knew you had been faking. I had everything planned out, but this was a fresh surprise, and my heart was in chaos. I looked intently into his eyes. You knew. I no longer knew who I was. Prince Huai, Jingwei Yi, no. Xiao Kai, also no. Softly, I said, Suaya, call me Cheng Jun. Okay. He smiled. I've always wanted to, but I'm not Jing Chizi. If I called you that, it would be mixing up the generations. Imperial Uncle. When I heard this, the whole world became a vast blank. It was true. Like Chizi, Chitan, and the others, he ought to be calling me Imperial Uncle. Imperial Uncle, he said, you and I have said many things today. all words from the heart, words from Jingwei Yi and Yun Yu's hearts. But this spectacle must end now, because I know that in reality you came here and said these things for Jing Qizi's sake. When you called me Yun Yu, you already knew who I was. Yes, I knew who he was, but I had lied to myself. Always said to myself, perhaps I had guessed wrong. This was impossible. He was Yun Yu. Yun Yu looked directly at me. When did you find out? I heard my own voice say slowly. When Yun Tang was plotting to rebel, there was something I couldn't understand. He was only a civil official, with no direct military authority. Even if his rebellion succeeded, how was he planning to make the people submit to his rule? After I encountered Yun Yu in Chengshou, there was still some things that surpassed my understanding. Yun Yu wasn't sloppy. In Chengshou, he had let me and Liu Tongyi leave. Afterward, when we encountered Yun Zai, and later when I saw Yun Yu on the Wan ship, I found it very strange. Yun Yu said he had come for Chizzy, but since Chizzy had decided to travel, all the appropriate arrangements must have been made. Though I did not have a deep understanding of Zhang Ping, I still thought that he wouldn't have sent a Ministry of Works official in the course of managing a flood to run off to guard the emperor. Not to mention that Tan had also been in Chengshou then. It was the same as Yun Zai's ship inexplicably following us the whole time. It couldn't be for my or Liu Tongyi's sake, so it could only be for Chizzy's. Last night, Yun Yu had impersonated Yun Zai and met me. Liu Tongyi had told me that making a mask required a great deal of time, so the mask Yun Yu had used to impersonate Yun Zai had not been made at the last moment. There were a few possibilities then. First, that Yun Yu often impersonated Yun Zai as he moved through the world. Second, that in the course of Yun Zai's large-scale business, he had engaged in some dishonest practices, and in the interests of safety, he had had his trusted associates impersonate him. Therefore, he would have these things ready. Yun Yu never did anything superfluous. When he had made Liu Tongyi and Chu Shun perform a duet, in reality he had been telling me that the two of them were acquainted. That Yun Zai had punched Yun Yu showed that his discord with Yun Tang had not led him to cut off all emotional ties. When the rupture between Yun Zai and Yun Tang had taken place, Yun Tang had not yet achieved high rank or reached the point where he could contemplate rebellion. When he had sent his eldest son away, he had been planning for the future. This was even stranger. This reminded me that after I faked my death and fled the capital, while we idled in Qinkai Alley, Zheng Shao had said to me, the princess was always worried that this would happen, because even if your highness does not have the high merit of the late Prince Huai Manor still knows too many secrets. In addition to his military honors, my father, it turned out, had also been mixed up in the case of a bastard of imperial blood. Sheng Xiao and Chief Steward Cao knew only the outlines of the situation. Chiao, sorry. The Tongguang Emperor had once had a brief affair with a common woman. Empress Liu had died of illness, and the Tongguang Emperor had found solitude unbearable. This romance had taken place during an outing from the palace. And the woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. The Tongguang Emperor did not acknowledge the mother or child, nor did he bring them into the palace. I didn't know the precise reason for this, but it was a wise move. The child's mother was humble, without backing. He was better off outside the palace. My father looked after mother and child in secret. Later, the Tongguang Emperor passed away, and the late emperor inherited the throne. During this fuss, there was a flood in the woman's hometown, and my father lost track of them. My father once said that my grandfather and grandmother met under the haitang blossom. That was why he was named Tang. He smiled. In fact, my brother has no intention of harming His Majesty, but for better or worse, he and His Majesty are first cousins. He wanted to have a chat. You are making too much of it, Imperial Uncle. I really would rather have been dead than hear him call me that, but he kept saying it. Imperial Uncle, he said, I'm actually the same as Jing Chizi and Jing Chitan. My head was splitting. Must wanted to pull out a knife and cut off my ears. Yun Yu was looking at me and smiling. Imperial Uncle, if my brother and I really had wanted to do something to Jing Chizi today, what would you have done to us? What would you have done to me? I stood, leaning against the table. There is no if, because nothing happened. His Majesty just came aboard the Wan ship for a visit. There's nothing else. Nothing at all happened. That's right, said Yunyu. There was nothing. From the very first, there was nothing. There could only be nothing. So what did everything that had come before meant? What should I make of it? If even Yunyu was false, what was true? I asked myself this, and I asked Yunyu. The corners of Yunyu's mouth twitched. His voice was calm. The only thing that's true is that I am your imperial nephew, Imperial Uncle. Okay. Now I'm getting a little bit of the ick because he just, French kissed his nephew. Ew. I think he kind of knew, or he was trying to force him into a corner with it, but dude. Yeah, and he knew it. I know, I get the feeling that it was trying to force his hand to admit it, but no. Just no. Yeah. We're talking about you literally just said there's some lines you don't cross. But yeah, surely there's another way. That's a no. Yeah. We're gonna go on and yeah, let's continue because it's just one of those where it's no, but then also just think of the family dinners after this. This family's a mess. Oh geez. I know we were saying he needs new nephews, but this is not what we meant by any stretch of the imagination. Ugh. In the evening, the ship stopped at Lingqiao town. Another day's travel, and we would reach Shuzhou. When I left the Wan ship, before I could return to Liu Tongyi's ship, I saw a handful of people on the pier dressed in square-necked jackets like servants. They arrived at Liu Tongyi's ship and whispered to a guard. One took something from his sleeve and flashed it at the guard, who hastily let them aboard. As I watched this, someone next to me said, "You aren't going back aboard, Master Uncle?" I looked back. It was Deng Tan, who had come up behind me unnoticed. I said, "I am." "Did these people come from back home?" Deng Tan followed me aboard as he said, "Precisely. The young master has been away too long. Naturally, they're getting worried at home. It must be Madam hurrying him home." I entered the hold. Wang Yu stood alone in the hall. He bowed to me. "They were just waiting for you, Master Uncle. Please go to the young master's room to talk." I wonder if Chizzy actually figured it out, and that's why there was that whole scene about Chizzy. Like, did they know? Oh, that makes things. I really hope that was a sibling bond back there where they're taking care of each other. Because that raises some questions. I followed him to Chizzy's door. The handful of servants from earlier were just leaving. Chizzy's voice came from the door, which stood ajar. Is Uncle out there? This meant there was no need to announce me, so I opened the door and went in. Wang Yu closed it behind me. Chizzy was sitting at the table. He put down his teacup. Before I could get down on my knees, he said, "Rise." I thanked him for his generousness. Chizzy pointed to the chair next to him. "Sit." I hesitated slightly, then sat. Chizzy said, "Why have you only grown more cautious at this stage, Imperial Uncle?" "The closer to the end, the more cautious one becomes," I said. Chizzy silently cast down his eyes. After a while, he finally said, "We are returning to the capital tonight." "Your Majesty ought to have returned to the capital before now," I said. "First, because without a ruler at court, it is difficult to meet great events with decision. Second, your Majesty's health is precious. You should not spend too long out in the world." "Our health is precious," said Chizzy. "If we were not emperor, we would be a prince, much like Chitan is now, perhaps also running around digging up antiques and admiring trinkets at home." "Your Majesty could never be a spendthrift like Prince Dai," I said sincerely. Chizzy raised his eyebrows and looked at me. He laughed. "That's true." The smile faded from his lips. He looked into my eyes. "You do not hate us, Imperial Uncle." "One performs the actions suited to one's station," I said. "I understand this." Chizzy looked down again. "We are glad you understand. We will have Wang Yu follow you." Chizzy never let anything slip by him. "As you command," I said. Chizzy looked at me again. "It seems that you do harbor some resentment. It is impossible that you would not. If there is anything else you want, you may tell us." "I have already done everything I've been thinking of," I said. "There is nothing else." The smile once again hovered at the corners of Chizzy's lips. "Imperial Uncle is truly direct. We are very much afraid Ayu be unwilling to return to court with us." "Lord Yun is your Majesty's subject," I said. "It would make no sense for him not to return to court." When I bade farewell and made to leave the room, Chizzy suddenly said, "Imperial Uncle." I turned back, but saw him stand there and look at me, then turn away. "Go ahead, Imperial Uncle." I opened the door and went out. I remembered one time, a decade or more ago, when Chizzy had called to me like this. He had just ascended the throne then, a child who had just lost his father, in court dress with his little face all tense, with a guarded look for everyone. Once someone had sent a newly weaned snow leopard cub to Huai Manor. Supposedly, it could be trained to hunt if it was fed raw meat growing up. While the leopard cub was curled up in a corner of its cage, not making a sound, the look in its eye had been identical to Chizzy's then. When he held his seal with both hands to affix it, they were very steady. At court, when he said "rise" or "granted," His voice was very firm. Every time I saw him, he was in the Imperial study, but when I went in, there was nothing on the desk, or else only some light reading laid out. I knew the Empress Dowager must have said something to him. When he spoke to me, his manner and tone were both studiously correct. Thank you for coming to see us, Imperial Uncle. We are very well, Imperial Uncle. We have not been ill recently. There is no call for your solicitude. It was all of this sort. Not like before, when he had always been coming to Y Manor. Occasionally, I brought curious baubles with me to amuse him, and at first he couldn't resist looking at them, at which point I would, as before, offer up the item and say, "Does this please your Majesty?" He would say mildly, "Thank you, Imperial Uncle," and permit me to put the item on the desk, cast down his eye to hide his wariness. I hated to see the Empress Dowager teaching a perfectly nice child to behave like this. But I did understand that as emperor, he could be no other way. So I stopped going to see him privately and let Chi-Tan and Chi-Fei have their pick of the baubles. But one day, when the Empress Dowager bade me come to the inner palace to talk, I went to look in on Chizzy. He was in his sleeping quarters for once, but there was only two or three attendants there. An attending eunuch said that His Majesty was engaged in a few days of self-reflection. The Empress Dowager had given instructions that he needed only a few servants to attend. I recalled that because Chizzy was usually a bit picky about his food, a remonstration official had submitted a memorial on this subject, advising that His Majesty's daily expenses were too extravagant. I heard that Chizzy had issued an edict that he would engage in self-reflection, and the Empress Dowager had issued her own edict that His Majesty's self-reflection was to be supervised. I entered the imperial sleeping quarters and found them bare, all playthings and decorations put away. Silk-embroidered landscapes on the walls, changed for some characterless works of ink-wash paintings and calligraphy conveying some mean poems. The heavy curtains embroidered with dragons had been swapped for nondescript drapes that were neither blue nor purple. The whole impressive set of imperial sleeping quarters had been turned into a hovel out of fiction. It was summer. From the imperial bed's 4 posts hung a aged curtain. It was laid with a straw mat. A wretched child, dressed in a burlap robe, sat feebly on the edge of the bed, his little face yellow as a candle. Yet this was the present son of heaven, my imperial nephew. The eunuch said that His Majesty had been diligently studying statecraft for some days, hard at work poring over his books, rising with the rooster's crow, and going to sleep at the 3rd watch of the night, eating the most meager diet. As he spoke, he surreptitiously wiped the corner of his eye with his sleeve. I did not know whether it was out of admiration or pity for the emperor. The enfeebled Chizzy saw me and managed to rouse himself a little. Imperial Uncle has come to see us. Please sit. I sat on a chair covered with a straw mat, looking at his pitiful yellow face. Fire flared up in my guts. The Empress Dowager, that stupid woman, and those so-called loyalists and their so-called overcorrection. This was it. Even to establish a good reputation, was it necessary to torment a child like this for the sake of appearances? If even the emperor went hungry and lived in a hovel, what prosperity could there be for the empire? By my own temper, I would have immediately had these ostentatious trappings changed and ordered the imperial kitchens to send out a substantial meal. But these were the emperor's sleeping quarters, and however powerful my distaste, I was still a subject. Just then, heaven came to my aid. Black clouds gathered, the sky darkened, and a low roar of thunder rumbled. "It is raining," said Chizzy. "Stay a little longer, Imperial Uncle." This phrasing was meant as a dismissal, but I said, "Then I thank your majesty for your favor." I looked at the hourglass. "It grows late. It must be time for your majesty's supper." "We have lately been engaged in self-reflection, eating one meal per day," said Chizzy. "We already ate at midday." Deliberately rubbed my belly. "I hold your majesty's action in esteem. I ought to emulate them." "As I expected," Chizzy said. "Are you hungry, Imperial Uncle? We will order a meal prepared for you," I hastily said. "If your majesty is not eating, I would not dare." In a timely manner, the eunuch put in, "Your eternal majesty, as his highness Prince Hua is here today, there's no harm in making an exception." Chizzy must have been starving. After a little more encouragement from us both, he nodded and said, "Very well. Have the imperial kitchens prepare supper." "I enjoy wine," I said. "Will your majesty grant me permission to drink?" "Granted," said Chizzy. With wine, there had to be meat. The imperial kitchens must have felt stifled lately and itched to make a display of their skills. Though there was only 10 or so dishes, 2 soups, 6 kinds of pastry, and all the meat was chicken, duck, or fish. The dishes were exquisite, the flavors perfect. I concentrated on eating, pretending I didn't notice Chizzy quietly wolfing down his food. It's probably not going to be great if you've been, fasting seriously, depending on how long. If you're wolfing down rich meats and lots of sugars, it's going to hurt his stomach. When the meal was over, it was already dark. A few small lamps were lit in the imperial chambers. Their light was dim and dusky. When I stood and took my leave, an unheralded flash of lightning lit the sky, setting off an earth-shaking clap of thunder. As I walked towards the door, I heard Chizzy behind me say, "Imperial Uncle." I turned back and saw him standing all alone in the midst of the enormous sleeping chamber. The shadows cast by the lamplight were elongated and overlapping, like a gathering of apparitions. "Imperial Uncle, the storm is at its strongest. Why not stay a while longer?" So I turned back and picked out some segments of legends to tell him. I told one after another until it was nearly the 3rd watch of the night, and all the while Chizzy refused to go to sleep. The storm outside was still raging, with no break in the thunder and lightning. I said, "In ancient times, on stormy nights, loyal ministers and able generals often took up swords and stood watch over the emperor through the night. I have a favor to ask of your majesty now. My leg is damaged, so I cannot take to the battlefield to show my loyalty to your majesty. Please grant me an opportunity to be a loyal subject. Allow me to stand watch over your majesty tonight." Chizzy looked at me with his eyes bright in the lamplight. "Permission granted," he said. The attendants conveyed word from the inner chamber to the outer chamber, and a mat was laid for me. Chizzy finally went to bed. The attendants let down the bed curtains. I lay down on the mat. From within the curtains, I heard Chizzy's childish voice say, "Imperial Uncle?" I said, "I am here." When our father passed away, it was also stormy like this. Our mother told us that our father would come back to see both of us. But we have never seen our father. Will he really come back to see us? If the late emperor really could see us at this very moment, I thought, he would be utterly despondent. But such an irreverent thought had to remain in my own mind. "The Empress Dowager surely would not lie to your majesty," I said. "When my father passed away, my mother said the same thing to me. At length, a sound of assent came from inside the curtains. It was a long time later that I fell into a doze. My staying the night in the imperial sleeping quarters later provoked censure from many ministers and became one more piece of evidence of my attempts to usurp the throne. With my reputation already what it was, they might say whatever they liked. Whether many years later, when Chizzy recalled the event, he would also think I was attempting to usurp the throne, I could not say. When a person grew up, everything would change, just as the Chizzy of back then had grown into the Emperor of today. There were no certainties. After nightfall, a number of carriages arrived on shore. Liu Tongyi and I respectfully saw off the Emperor in the ship's hold. Smiling brightly, Chizzy said to me, "Uncle, you should also hurry back, or you'll be missed at home." "Safe travels," I said. To outsiders, this must have been a scene of perfect harmony between uncle and nephew. "These past few days have been an imposition on Master Mei," said Chizzy. Liu Tongyi bowed. "Not at all." Dang Tan and the others crowded around Chizzy as he boarded his carriage. The carriages all receded into the distance in the night. Behind me, Wang Yu said, "It is late. What do you wish to eat for dinner, Master Uncle? I will arrange it." "Steward Wang is a guest as well," said Liu Tongyi. "Allow me to undertake expenses for meals." He ordered a room prepared for Wang Yu. Wang Yu said, "I do not dare to impose on Master Mei. I will wait personally on Master Uncle, or else my master will reproach me on my return." Liu Tongyi smiled and said, "Very well." I stood on deck looking out. The wan ship stood beside us, blazing with light. Through the open windows, the scene of two men drinking and watching a performance could be faintly seen. They were Yun Zai and Yun Yu. After dinner, Liu Tongyi said he wished to check the accounts for the silk purchase with me. He asked if this was a convenient time. Then he said to Wang Yu, "Steward Wang could also help Master Xiao make sure that I have left no omissions on my accounts." Wang Yu said, "How could a servant like me dare to interfere with Master Uncle's business? I will attend outside. Just call me when you would like tea." I went with Liu Tongyi to his bedroom. Liu Tongyi shut the door and took a letter from his sleeve. He dipped his fingers in tea and wrote on the table, Shangping. Zhangping. I took the letter and tore it open. The letter consisted of a scant few words. "Your Highness Prince Huai, I know of all that took place in the past, but I hope we will live in harmony and the nation will be at peace." My heart chilled. Zhang Ping really was somebody. Even this he had uncovered. But why had he written me this letter? Liu Tongyi took the letter and burned it. I watched the last bit of paper turn to ash. Soon it will be beyond me to meddle. He ought to keep his attention on matters that merit it. Liu Tongyi poured some tea into the bowl holding the ashes, opened the window and emptied the bowl outside and let the window screen down. "Chief Steward Wang is keeping an eye on me to ensure I make a clean exit," I said. Liu Tongyi said, "Tomorrow we will reach Shusho. What plans does Master Xiao have for the future?" I paused, then said, "Master Mei, I am going to be brazen again and ask for your help with some things. May I?" Liu Tongyi looked at me and said nothing. So I continued. "In Shusho, I will hire a carriage and go straight to the sea. Perhaps I will never return. During my years doing business, I've accumulated a bit of property, which I can't take with me. I'd like to ask you to take it. What you have a use for, you can keep if you don't mind. Whatever you don't, you can give to others or throw away if you see fit. Liu Tongyi said, "The luggage Master Shao brought aboard did not look like much to me. Why can't you take it to sea with you?" "There isn't much luggage," I said, "but there's the shop in Chingshao, which I hope Master Mei can look after for me. I also have some silver banknotes here which can be exchanged throughout the country. I won't be able to use them when I go abroad and can't carry that much gold and silver. Please take them for me, Master Mei. You can give them to Prince Dai whenever he gets into a hole again. Other people can also find a use for my things. Also, no, there's nothing else." Liu Tongyi frowned. "I'm afraid I can't agree." I hadn't expected him to refuse. I was startled. Liu Tongyi said, "Master Xiao and I aren't especially close friends, yet you are always asking me to help you with your personal affairs. It doesn't seem appropriate. Perhaps it would be better if Master Xiao found another trustworthy person." I felt embarrassed, then forced a smile and said, "Master Mei is right. I have imposed on you too much. I, Jing Wei Yi, had lived 32 or 33 years, and my life was a failure. Decades at court, over 3 years roaming the world, and when I needed to commit something to another's care, however I thought about it, the only person I could go to was Liu Tongyi. But why should he agree to my request? Did I think that just because he was a gentleman, he was bound to agree? That really was unreasonable. When I had this realization, my speech became faltering. Master Mei, I did not give this sufficient consideration. Forget I said anything." Liu Tongyi smiled. "When we reach Shusho, if you have trouble finding a carriage, I can make arrangements for you." I clasped my hands. "Thank you." I returned to my cabin. There were no stirrings from the wan ship next to us. All remained calm till daybreak. The next day, we reached Shusho. I packed my bags in the hold. I thought it would be over hasty to have a last meal on the pier. First, I would say goodbye to Liu Tongyi. I didn't find him in the hall and was about to go to his rooms, but halfway there I heard footsteps and saw him coming out. He was carrying a wine pitcher and wine cups. I had rarely seen him drink. Liu Tongyi put the pitcher and cups on the table. He said, "I do not drink much, but I know that Master Shao enjoys wine, so I have prepared a pitcher of poor wine to bid Master Shao farewell." He lifted his hand and filled the cups, then raised one. "Take care of yourself when you go." I picked up the other cup, but the weight of my hand seemed immeasurable. "I have caused you so much trouble. I'm afraid I will never be able to repay you in this life. Look after yourself, too." Liu Tongyi tipped back his head and drank his wine in one gulp. Smiling, I said, "Seeing Master Mei drink so freely, I believe your tolerance isn't as poor as you've always disclaimed. If it were early enough now, I would like to drink to intoxication with you and see who falls first." Liu Tongyi shook his head, smiling. "I really can't drink. I can handle a few cups, but more than that, and I can't walk straight." The ship gradually slowed as it entered Shu Shao Pier. When the ship was moored, a page came in to tell Liu Tongyi that Rui's carriages were here and waiting on shore. Liu Tongyi said, "If the wands have no carriage prepared, Master Shao can choose a couple of carriages to use with little young Master Wan and Steward Wang. The wands have no residence in Shusho. If you do not like to stay in an inn, my home has a separate courtyard that is tranquil enough. If you find it adequate, you can spend the night there." Wang Yu put in a word. "No need. My master has arranged a carriage for Master Uncle on shore." Wang Yu and Rui Hei's page helped me move my luggage. We left the hold. Under the setting sun, a man stood alone on the deck of the ship next to us. I met his eyes. After a while, I raised a hand and said, "Look after yourself." He said nothing, only slowly turned and went into the hold. I went down the gangplank and onto the pier. Liu Tongyi stood in front of Rui Hei's carriages, looking at me with a confused and doubtful expression. I smiled at him. "Master Mei, this time it truly is goodbye. You..." Now that it had come to this, I felt that I had absolutely nothing to say. It had to be those two words again. Take care. Wang Yu led a carriage over. I got in and it jolted ahead. Wang Yu said respectfully, "Your Highness, Prince Huai, His Majesty told me to notify you that if there is still anything you cannot let go of, any place you wish to visit, you should feel free to do so in the next few days." So he's banishing him. They're essentially banishing him from the nation, even though he literally has not done anything wrong. That's pretty shitty. "There's nothing," I said. "But I spoke of going to sea, so let us head for the sea now." Wang Yu said he would obey and stuck his head out of the carriage to give the driver instructions. I glanced at the bundle next to him and said, "Let me have a look. It's for me anyway." I opened it. Inside was a... Oh, Wang Yu hesitated a moment, then trembled as he passed the bundle to me. I opened it. Inside it was a blue and white porcelain jar, cool to the touch. It produced a crisp sound when struck. It was good quality porcelain. When Shizzy had come to Huai Manor with Chitan and the other princes, in a bout of mischief, they had taken sticks and struck the big vase in the hall. It had made the same sound. As they struck the vase, they had called out, "Imperial Uncle! Imperial Uncle!" It's a weird way to end a chapter. Sorry. There must be like some dust in the basement and it's just setting off my allergies. Maybe I'll start taking loratadine before I start this. We're gonna keep going. Like we're gonna finish the main storyline tonight. I just need a sip. I'm actually kind of like not sure where the pairing's going this. Like I'm still pretty sure it's gonna be Liu Tongyi. Just because like who else is it gonna be at this point? Like, is he gonna just find a random person and be happy? Is he like going to just be like zen and at peace at the end? Like fade to black? I don't know. Maybe Liu Tongyi will be like, "I know I've got some business going here, but like let's just travel the sea together. Why not?" Chapter 11. That day, when Chizzy had seen me alone, when I was in his room, he had also called out first, Imperial Uncle. Then he'd asked me, Imperial Uncle, what should we do? When we learned of the injustice that had been done to you, we blamed ourselves profoundly. We know you did it all for us. Can you tell us what we should do now? Yes. What should he do? His Majesty had issued a penitential decree. He had built a tomb. He had established a memorial. But the man who ought to have been asleep in that tomb was running freely out in the world. What was there to be done? I said, Prince Huai is dead. There is only... Chizzy raised a hand. Enough, Imperial Uncle. Do not trot that out to lie to us both. When you stand there, even with some common name like Yao San or Miao Si, you are still our Imperial Uncle. The hypothetical names here translate to something like third dog and fourth cat. Naturally, it isn't a good idea to imply that the Emperor is related to people with such names. Your Majesty must not use such examples, I said at once. It was nothing for me to be named Gao Asan or Mao Asi, but if the Emperor were to become Gao Asan or Mao Asi's nephew, now that would really be... Chizzy sighed and looked at me. That look was the same as when he had wanted something when he was little. Your Majesty, I said, I am planning to go to sea, never to return. Still Chizzy did not speak. I continued, if the ship were to encounter a storm and sink, there would be no further cause for concern. Finally, Chizzy spoke. Distinctly, he said, Imperial Uncle, do not blame us. He took a small vial from his sleeve. I accepted it. The vial was made of jade. Because Chizzy had kept it in his sleeve, it was warm from his body. Chizzy had rarely given me anything. Ever since he was little, he had always taken things from me. I squeezed it and said, Thank you for this gift, Your Majesty. Chizzy sighed again. Your Majesty, I said, the only thing is, can it not be on Liu Tongyi's ship? Chizzy slowly said, This drug needs several days to take effect. Do not worry, Imperial Uncle. Do you want to return with us to the capital, or... Too many people know me in the capital, I said. It will be cleaner to handle this elsewhere. I removed the stopper from the vial. It contained a liquid, which was slightly bitter. Chizzy turned away. After a while, he said, Imperial Uncle, we promise you that mausoleum will always be yours. The carriage rattled. I put the jar back into its bundle. Wang Yu would use it to take me back to that big tomb, he said hoarsely to me. Do not worry, Your Highness Prince Huai. That tomb was created on His Majesty's personal orders. I may be getting on in years, but my hands are still steady. I will convey Your Highness there safely. I thought he was just banishing him. I was wrong. I said nothing. I laid down in the carriage to doze, then remembered what had happened that day aboard the ship after I drank from the vial. I had been about to withdraw then, when Chizzy had turned around. Imperial Uncle, stay and talk to us. Afterward, Chizzy spoke to me for a long time. He spoke of nothing more monumentous than minor doings at court in bygone years. For example, which tree in the palace the late emperor had personally planted, under which circumstances he had planted it, and so on. He said, "We remember everything about going to visit you when we were little, Imperial Uncle." He said, "We have always remembered your kindness to us." He said these things as though it were an ordinary conversation. He said, "We will never say these things to anyone else, and we never will again. Or we have never said these things to anyone else, and we never will again." I said, "There is no need for your majesty to say this, to make an irreverent comparison. Relationships between members of an ordinary family are much closer than those between members of the imperial family. Look at Prince Dai. When he nearly emptied out Huai Manor, if he came over and called me uncle, I still had to give him money. This was only reasonable. Huai Manor was seized after I was arrested. The things my father had brought home in years past, and the trinkets I had purchased when I was young. The decorations and jewelry my mother had liked when she was alive. They must all have been destroyed or confiscated or pocketed during the seizure. I remembered a couple of years back when I was in the desert buying sheepskins. Lost a drinking contest with some herders and spent half the night throwing up, then caught a chill and ran a fever. In my delirium, I thought I was still in bed in my bedroom at Huai Manor, and my mother was bringing me a hangover remedy. She berated me as she raised it to my lips, but when I drank it, it tasted of plain water. When I opened my eyes, I found that I was wrapped in a sheepskin jacket, sleeping on horsehide, with a young woman beside me holding a rough pottery bowl, giving me cold water to drink. She was ordinary looking, with a dark, ruddy face and coarse hands, but her eyes were bright and clear, with no trace of impurity. Perfectly clean. When she smiled at me and showed her white teeth, I thought she was like a goddess. That girl was Aliana. When I left, she said she was going to marry a young man who rode a fast horse. Perhaps they had even had children now. The carriage rattled forward. I slept in it a while, and in my dreams I now saw Chizzy talking to me. Then now Aliana, now Mija, now Shui, now Wanwan. Finally, it was Xiang Niang, who had kept a stall at the corner of an alley in a town where I had once stayed. I hadn't felt like cooking then. Every day I took a small pot and went to her stall to buy noodles with shredded chicken. I would eat it at midday, then in the evening add water to the leftovers and eat them as though they were porridge. That made a second meal. She always gave me extra, filling that little pot right up. She told me that her husband was dead, and all she had left were 2 children who had just learned to walk. She said she wanted nothing in life, only to find someone who could support her and her children. She would do everything in her power to treat that person well. I thought at that time that she was hinting something when she said this to me, but unfortunately, I didn't stay long in that town. Before I left, I'd wanted to give her some money, but she said she only spent money she had earned herself. I realized then that she had been looking after me, not favoring me. In my dream, I sold noodles with her at that corner of the alley. She rolled them, and I watched the pot. When the water boiled, I removed the lid, and the steam rushed out up into my face. At my feet were children who tugged at my shirt, calling, "Papa! Papa!" The carriage gave a sudden jolt. I awoke. Yun Yu's hoarse voice said, "Your Highness, we're nearly there." The carriage stopped, and I alighted. Before me was a noisy pier. Ships were anchored near the shore. People came and went. Heaps of goods were stacked and carted. I had thought I might catch a glimpse of boundless waves, but instead we were in an inlet. A boatman carried goods by the shore told me that of course a large pier could only be built in an inlet. Beyond this was the open sea. I looked toward the mouth of the inlet. Wang Yu said softly behind me, "You can rent a small boat to go have a look, sir. I can do nothing beyond that." I considered. It ought to be nearly time. Compared to 2 days ago, my head was heavier and my steps were a little uncertain, my limbs numb. It might be tonight or tomorrow. Though a great man can see the whole universe in a grain of sand, faced with this little inlet, I still wanted to go forward and see more. Soon, perhaps, I would have nothing left, but right now, at least, I could have something. I circled the pier and found a small boat that transported goods out to the big vessels, but the boatman refused under any circumstances to take me. He said he had taken a job from a big ship and couldn't delay. Even when Wang Yu gave me silver to tempt him, it still did no good. The boatman said, "It isn't that I'm unwilling to deal with you, but I've already accepted a job and I can't delay. We have long-term jobs, not one-offs. Please understand, sir." In plain terms, he couldn't afford to offend a major customer for the sake of a tiny transaction. As we spoke, the major customer's ship slowly pulled in and dropped anchor by the shore. I saw a name in large characters at the fore of the ship. Ruihe. A man with the look of a steward left the ship and bowed to me. "Master Shao, what a coincidence. We meet again. My master is on the ship and invites you to come aboard." Oh no. Man! I went aboard and saw Liu Tongyi standing in front of the hold. "Master Mei," I said, "is there enough wine on your ship this time?" Liu Tongyi looked at Wang Yu behind me, smiled, and said, "Naturally there is wine. There is someone in the hold who wants to say something to Master Shao." I entered with Liu Tongyi. He took me to a cabin, knocked twice, and opened the door. I went in, and the door was gently closed behind me. I heard Liu Tongyi's footsteps walk away. The man in front of the window turned around and saluted me. "Your Highness, Prince Huai." It was Yun Zai. "I have traveled on Chancellor Liu's ship in order to thank your Highness. Thank you for your kindness to the Yun family." "I shouldn't accept young Master Yun's gratitude," I said. "From beginning to end, nothing I have done has been for the sake of the Yun family. There are some things that should remain in the past. They have been buried, so treat them as dirt." "Please do not worry, your Highness," said Yun Zai. "My brother has decided to travel the world with me. Henceforth, there will be no Yun family. I only wish to be a law-abiding merchant. Where there have been no entanglements or quarrels before, there will be none now. My brother has already accepted the situation, but he feels truly guilty that your Highness has been forced to live abroad from now on." "My situation has nothing to do with that," I said. "This is how government works." For the imperial family, power and benefit had always been of greatest import. Familial affection was extraneous. Yun Zai said to me, "Oh, yes, my brother asked me to say some things to your Highness. First, to ask your Highness to rest easy. Second, to say that he himself does not know the answer to the question you asked him that day. At first, it was fake, and while the falsehood became truth, in the end, it was still false." I said, "Then please convey a message for me, eldest young Master Yun. I have always loved him very much, and whether he is Yun Yu or little young Master Wan, I hope he takes good care of himself. Still a bit ick, but also hoping, like, I get the sentiment, okay? Moving on. Yun Zai bowed to me and left the cabin. I stood in the room alone, an icy chill spreading from my heart, as in the snow over a decade ago. As I lifted my imperial nephews one by one to pick plum blossoms and was about to pick up the last child, one of the palace eunuchs said to me, "Your Highness, this is Chancellor Yun's son, not a prince." I could no longer recall what the child had looked like, but an event had been firmly fixed but that event had been firmly fixed in his memory. "You broke off a plum blossom branch and gave it to me then. I ought to prostrate myself in gratitude. Thank you, Your Highness. Clearly, I am the same as them." A while later, Liu Tongyi opened the door and came in, then shut the door. "The servants are preparing a boat. Master Wan is about to leave." He put the bundle in his hands on the table and continued, "There will be 6 boatmen aboard to take Master Wan to his ship." Liu Tongyi shifted a potted tree on a shelf beside the window, and a hole opened unexpectedly in the wall, revealing a narrow passage. "If you leave by this passage, you'll reach the place where the boatmen are gathered." I looked at him. "And how are you planning to deal with Wang Yu?" "There are always ways," said Liu Tongyi with perfect composure. "Don't worry." I looked at him again, picked up the bundle, went to the hole, dropped the bundle into the passage, rotated the potted tree, closed the hole, and grabbed his arms. "Since there's wine on your ship, can you drink a few cups with me?" Liu Tongyi looked at me with his brows tightly furrowed. "Your Highness Prince Huai, time is short. If you do not go now—" "Why should I go?" I said. "I want Ranci to keep me company." Liu Tongyi's arms went rigid. I half dragged him out of the door. Wang Yu scurried up to the end of the passage. I pulled Liu Tongyi right past him. "Eunuch Wang, I'm going to drink a few cups with Lord Liu. Why don't you rest in your room for now?" Wang Yu assented behind me. When we reached the hall, I stopped. "Oh yes, Master Mei, where would it be suitable for us to drink?" Liu Tongyi looked at me with a stiff expression, called over a servant, gave him some instructions, and said to me, "This way." Liu Tongyi took me to a quiet, out-of-the-way little room. The servant first brought wine, then a little later brought food. I drank cup after cup as I asked Liu Tongyi, "Why did you come here?" There was a cup of wine in front of Liu Tongyi. No matter what I said to him, he would only take a few sips. "I just happened to be passing by." I laughed. "You even brought eldest young Master Yun. How did that just happen?" Coolly, Liu Tongyi said, "Master Wan happened to want to come, and I happened to bring him." I laughed again and kept drinking. Unnoticed, the sky darkened. Stumbling a little, I took a trip to the latrine. When I returned to the room, I was just about to continue when Liu Tongyi leapt to his feet, went to the wall, wrapped his arms around a vase, and twisted it. Again, a hole opened in the wall. I looked at him slightly aghast. "Master Mei, how many secret passages are there on your ship?" Liu Tongyi once again produced a bundle. Your Highness, Prince Huai, leave now while it's dark. Eunuch Wan is asleep. You need not worry. I put down my cup and stared at him. Then what will you do? When Wang Yu wakes up, how are you going to explain yourself? Still cool, Liu Tongyi said, Please do not worry, Your Highness. Naturally, I have a means to extricate myself. I wanted to laugh a little. The pain behind my left ribs was growing stronger. There was a sour taste in my mouth. I swayed to my feet and walked up to him. Liu Tongyi put the bundle into my hands. I grabbed his hands, stumbled, and inadvertently fell against him. Liu Tongyi's body went rigid again. I whispered into his ear, It's no use. You understood His Majesty's tactics. That day he summoned me to see him alone. He gave me a drug. My life ends tonight. Liu Tongyi's body was warm. It gave me a feeling of calm. I couldn't quite keep my footing. There happened to be a bed in the room, so I fell onto it with him. I couldn't see Liu Tongyi's expression now, so I only said to him, Renzi, I'm sorry. I didn't want to drag you into this again. Perhaps this is fate. Now that I'm nearing the end, you're still the one at my side. I was very much attached to life. I didn't know why people were born, nor whether ghosts truly existed. Perhaps life was a brief bout of something, while death was an eternal nothing. No matter what, something was better than nothing. That was what I thought. So no matter how past events had panned out, I exhausted all my efforts fighting to keep myself alive. But the more I struggled, the less I could escape. Now that it came down to it, I had no thoughts, only a blank feeling of numbness. I said to Liu Tongyi, Renzi, I've said it before. Nothing is owed between us. You don't have to treat me like this, but thank you for doing it regardless. Liu Tongyi's voice seemed to be very far away. I do not do this because of anything I might owe you, and it isn't to hear you thank me. I closed my eyes peacefully. My whole life was worth it to hear these words. Liu Tongyi, if there should be, I thought about it and said nothing. Forget the ifs. They might all be false. In this instant of utter reality, it was unsuitable to speak of such things. Supposing that what came after this was only a dreamless sleep, when daybreak came and I awoke, if I could only see him, hear him say, Prince Huai, Your Highness, Master Shao, anything at all would do. If I could only hear, could only see, how good that would be. Amid dense darkness, I automatically opened my eyes and saw a blurry face. When the face became clear, it was Liu Tongyi's. He stood by the bed holding a bowl. You're awake? For an instant, I was totally numb. Then I instantly propped myself up. Where am I? Aboard ship, Liu Tongyi said calmly. Master Shao slept aboard the ship last night. It is now mid-morning. Did you sleep well? When I frowned, a stabbing pain lanced through my head. Liu Tongyi passed me the bowl. I took it and drank it down in one gulp. How did you find the antidote and save my life? Besides which, this antidote was quite pleasant, sweet, like Suan Mei Tang flavored with osmanthus. Suan Mei Tang flavored with osmanthus. This is Suan Mei Tang, a hangover cure, said Lu Tang Yi. Master Shao wasn't poisoned. Why would you need an antidote? My head ached even more fiercely. I opened my mouth. Liu Tongyi passed me a handkerchief, then a letter. I took the handkerchief and wiped my mouth. Then I took the letter. There was writing on the envelope. For Uncle. Private. It was Chizzy's handwriting. Liu Tongyi turned away, holding the empty bowl. Eunuch Wang left before daybreak. He left me this letter to give to you. I heard Liu Tongyi's steps recede into the distance, and the door closed. Then I tore open the letter. There was no address, no signature, only a single sentence. I have always trusted you, Uncle, but you have never trusted me. Well, that's a powerful statement. It kind of hurts. Approaching noon, the sun was resplendent. It sparkled on the sea, dazzling to behold. I found Liu Tongyi in a cool spot below deck. He was looking into the distance, I knew not at what. When I came up in front of him, he said, Steward Wang told me to convey to your Highness, Prince Huai, that he was acting under imperial orders and offended you in many particulars. He also said that blue and white porcelain jar was an old possession. Your Highness must have forgotten about it, but His Majesty ordered him to give it to your Highness as a keepsake. He has left that little jar in his room. I said nothing. After a brief silence, Liu Tongyi turned his head and looked at me. I wonder what plans Master Zhao has going forward? I looked at him. What plans does Master Mei hope I will make? Liu Tongyi paused. I hardly have room to speak on the matter, but if Master Zhao still wishes to go to Java, I know where you can get a reliable ship. I thought about it, then said, smiling, Concerning that, there is no need for Master Mei to go out of your way. I've become accustomed to drifting. All that is familiar to me. While the weather is good, I will bid you farewell. I packed up the clothes and luggage Wang Yu had left for me, as well as that little jar. With the bag over my shoulder, I left the hold. Behind me, Liu Tongyi said, Master Zhao. I looked back. He said, It's noon already. Why not eat before you go? I smiled and then said, I don't think so. A noontime meal might last into the evening, and that would be another day's delay. When I was again about to leave, Liu Tongyi said again, Master Zhao. I looked back at him again. His lips moved, but finally all he said was, Take care. Take care, Master Mei, I said. The world is wide. We may meet again. I went down the gangplank and came ashore. I walked on a while, then turned back to look at the ship. There seemed to be a person at the fore, but the sun was too bright, and I couldn't see clearly. Perhaps there was no one. I turned. People came and went around me. The road ahead was long. All right, one more chapter left for the main story, and it looks like it's a pretty short one. So we're almost done for tonight. I know we've been going for a while. Chapter 12. I grabbed a handful of dried red flowers from the bag and rubbed them between my fingers. I think there's something wrong with your product. The middle-aged man glared at me, stiff-necked. How did you even get involved in this? Don't mess up my sale. These really are top-quality tobacco flowers from the kingdom of Mohe for the king's exclusive use. I don't suppose you've ever even seen anything this good. I've seen plenty of tobacco flowers, but the largest dried flowers are still only the size of a pea. Yours are all as big as chrysanthemums. Maybe they're just wildflowers growing at your village gate. Even the man's neck turned purple. Total nonsense. They're expensive precisely because they're big. Only the best quality ones are this big. Put down the flowers and gave him my earnest advice. Next time you want to cheat someone, remember to do a little more research. As everyone knows, tobacco flowers are more expensive the smaller they get. The ones that look like rice flour are the highest quality. You have it backwards. The man's eyes became two protuberant pigeon's eggs. He was dragged off to see the authorities by some burly men. Then I dusted off my hands and turned to the person who had been standing off to the side with his hands behind his back during this exchange. I smiled and said, Master May, what a coincidence. Liu Tongyi gave me a faint smile. The steward beside him said, Master Xiao, it is a coincidence. This is the third time this month. Each time our general manager goes out to purchase goods, we run into you. Then it must be fate, I said. When you leave the pier, there's a good restaurant at the corner. Shall we drink a cup of wine together? Master Zhao helped us recognize a fake product, said Liu Tongyi. I should be treating you. Only, isn't Master Zhao doing business in Java? How come we met you the time before last picking up goods in Dongying? And how come we met you last time picking up goods in Goryeo? And now that we've come to the desert on business, we meet you again. I waved a hand and said, Well, I haven't had much to do. Perhaps you know, Master May, that Java is a little place, like a pellet. Nothing there but coconut palms. If you want to experience the virtues of spring flowers and fall fruits, you have to venture out into the wild world. Liu Tongyi inclined his head slightly, but there was a smile tucked into the corners of his lips. That's true. You say this is a monkey skull? Picked up the bowl and weighed it. The edges were inlaid with gleaming brass, and a piece of jade hung from it. That made it pretty heavy. The old fellow gasped and extended a trembling hand. Sir, be careful. Don't break it. It's an old Monkey King's skull. Do you see those 6 places? He pointed to the places with the inlaid jade flowers and copper plates. That is where the Monkey King's 6 ear holes are located. An exceptional 6-eared macaque took 10 great shamans to bring him down. Look here at these talismans. Any lesser personages than Master May couldn't appreciate it. I've already decided to sell it to Master May. I'm very sorry, sir. I opened my eyes wide. What a truly expensive object. 10 shamans trekked all the way from the desert to the South Sea to make this old coconut. Travel expenses alone must have been considerable. The old fellow was aghast. Don't talk nonsense, sir. What coconut? This is the skull of an exceptional 6-eared macaque monkey king. I'm probably saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Smiling, I said, But this monkey king must be very old to have the grain of a coconut shell on his bones. I scraped off the skin of paint with a knife. The object's true nature was instantly evident. The old fellow left in a cloud of mournful sighs, clutching the coconut. Liu Tongyi smiled at me. Master Zhao is a true expert. Naturally, I'm an expert when it comes to coconuts. They're everywhere in Java. You can't avoid becoming an expert. But Master May, I recall that you're very skilled in discerning these things. How did you come to nearly fall for it? I am only skilled when it comes to antiques, said Liu Tongyi. I haven't seen many coconuts. True enough. I grabbed him by the arm. In all this time, I've eaten so many meals at your expense. Yuan Shao lies to the south. It's my turn to pay. Liu Tongyi smiled again and let me take him toward a restaurant. All right. I kind of like this. We're seeing all their spontaneous dates. The rain was coming down in buckets. I opened an umbrella on the veranda. A gust of wind blew in slantwise and nearly sent me reeling. The inn's attendant said, Sir, you can't go out in this weather. Rest a while in your room. I hear several ships on the river capsized between last night and today. I looked up. When the wind dropped slightly, I charged into the rain all the same. I had received word that Rui Hei's people had arrived in the city the day before yesterday, but when I had arrived, the inn they were staying at was already full. If I didn't go today and waited until the rain stopped, they might be gone by tomorrow. Besides, it was pouring and it was midday. They were sure to be eating in the main hall. It would be more natural for me to go inside to get out of the rain. I hadn't gone 2 steps when a wild gust of wind blew my umbrella away. I turned back to the inn and borrowed a raincoat and bamboo hat from the attendant, then staggered onward. Up ahead, at a corner leading to the pier, I caught sight of someone standing in the wind and rain, unmoving, looking as if he were on the verge of being bent in half by the wind. The 2 people beside him were desperately trying to drag him away. The more I looked, the more familiar he became. When I was right in front of him, I blurted out, Run! He looked back abruptly, and I tipped up the bamboo hat. Master May. I had never seen Liu Tongyi in such a wretched state. His hair and clothes were plastered to his skin as if he were a water ghoul. I moved my lips, trying to smile, but for some reason I couldn't manage it. I could only say, a little stiffly, Master May, what a coincidence. We meet again. Liu Tongyi stared fixedly at me, but he was smiling. Yes, such a coincidence. We meet again. I put the bamboo hat on Liu Tongyi's head and pulled him back to the inn, where I immediately put him in a hot bath and prepared ginger tea. But Liu Tongyi still became feverish at once. For 2 days straight, he threw up anything he ate. His stewards and servants did nothing but cry. The old steward clung to me and said, The old master died of lung disease. The young master also. What will we do? Whatever will we do? All the servants sobbed. I threw them out. Late at night, I wrung out a cool handkerchief and put it back on Liu Tongyi's head. I said to him that actually we hadn't met by coincidence those times. I had gone to Java and stayed there for a month. Looking at the coconuts and the trees full of monkeys, I felt an unbearable emptiness. I felt I had no place to settle. At my age, all prior entanglements, whether true or counterfeit, were as transient as clouds. But there was one person who, when I had nothing to my name, I could trust, could rely on, who made me feel at peace, who kept me company. Only that was real. That person could only be Liu Tongyi. Whether he was Chancellor Liu at court, Mei Yong managing Rui Hei, or the owner of that little house in Chin Kai Alley. I tucked Liu Tongyi's hand under the covers. So you have to be all right, or else when I really am about to die, who will I have to depend on? I was just about to get up to check on the medicine pot when I heard a weak voice. Don't come to me again. You've Scarred me and you've scared me 3 times. I've had enough. I wiped my nose and drank the cold medicine, then heard 2 knocks on the door. Liu Tongyi's steward scurried in and said, Master Xiao, our general manager, can move around now. He'd like to invite Master Zhao to have lunch with him. Lunch was very plain because I still had a cold, and Liu Tongyi had only just recovered from his illness. Apart from a dish of milk-white fish soup, the table was covered in greens and root vegetables. We couldn't even have rice wine. After this uninspiring meal, I was really in no mood for tea. With nothing to sweeten the palate, I tasted only bland bitterness. I put a hand over my teacup and said to Liu Tongyi, Oh, yes, Master Mei, there's something I'd like to ask your help with. Liu Tongyi stopped in the process of pouring tea. Please go ahead, Master Xiao. It's like this, I said. A little while ago I lost some money on a deal, so... Liu Tongyi put down the teapot and looked at me. I continued. I'm not asking to borrow money. I wanted to ask, does Ruihei have an opening? For an assistant manager, or a steward, or something. Your business keeps getting bigger. There's a lot to do. You'll need some more people to help out. Anyway, Liu Tongyi kept looking at me. I met his gaze and smiled. Rancy, how much longer are you and I going to keep going in circles like this? Liu Tongyi smiled too. I don't want to circle anymore. You're the one who keeps circling. 10 years later, the 5th month came again, and Rancy and I went to sea to purchase goods. We returned in autumn, and as soon as we came home, Steward Li informed us that an urgent dispatch had arrived from the capital. Been waiting at the house for half a month and was addressed to me by full name. Since coming ashore, Rancy and I had seen some strange indications along the way and heard some remarks. As soon as I saw that envelope, my heart went cold. It was Chitan's handwriting. I hastily tore open the letter. Only a few words were written, but they had already turned my limbs to ice. Uncle, His Majesty is gravely ill. He wants to see you. I raced the whole way on horseback. As I arrived outside the capital, I saw the city guard dressed in indigo and raising mourning streamers. My vision went black, and I knew nothing more. Oh, I mean, it was a very complicated relationship, but it was still his nephew. Like, you can tell he really did love him. Fine autumn rain fell, soaking the earth. The leaves among the mountains were a striking field of red. I dug the soil and buried that little blue and white porcelain jar beside the tablet, which was inscribed, Tablet of sagacious benevolence and divine merit for great Yang's Emperor Daizong. I only remembered that my nephew Chizzy had been no eternal majesty, and he hadn't been called Daizong. He had just been a somewhat shy, awkward child. For those born into the imperial family, there were many rules. You could not play very much, nor eat very much, for the sake of propriety and dignity. So a child of 10 would never even have seen Laba garlic. So the Laba festival is celebrated on the 8th day of the last month of Chinese calendar. Marks the beginning of the New Year period. Vinegar-soaked garlic, called Laba garlic, is traditionally eaten during the festival, especially in northern China. It's kind of cool. At the time, it had been the last month of the year, and whatever the Empress Dowager might have been thinking, she had sent the Crown Prince to Huai Manor. Naturally, Chitan, Chifei, and the other natural disasters were there as well. It was yet another day of great unrest in our household. I had snatched a moment's peace to sit in a little hall. My mother happened to tell me that the kitchen had just finished making fresh laba garlic. I had brought some with me, or I had some brought to me. I was just about to sample it when the crown prince, who had just entered the room, shouted, "Stop!" He swept his sleeve over the table, and the small dish containing the garlic crashed to the ground and shattered. The servants in the hall were all scared right to their knees. Chizzy looked up at me and said sternly, "This garlic has turned green and must be rank with poison. Why would you still eat it?" I stared at him, then laughed. The servants in the hall, as well as my mother, who had come running at the noise, also laughed. "The crown prince hasn't eaten laba garlic before. It's only during the last month of the year, around the laba festival, where this kind of garlic can be pickled." I had more brought and ate it then and there to show him. A maid said, smiling, "The crown prince's health is precious, so naturally he hasn't seen a common food like this." A rare flush appeared on Chizzy's face. Looking stern, he said, "I do not often eat things in the nature of chives and garlic." Presumably, there was a concern that they would cause bad breath or flatulence, which would be indecorous. I ate a clove and saw Chizzy constantly staring at the dish. Since there was a rule against it, I did not dare give the crown prince laba garlic to eat, so I asked for it to be carried away. But when the maid bent to pick it up, Chizzy said, "Hold." The maid drew back her hands. Chizzy walked over to the table. With a solemn expression, he said methodically, "I must know more about the ways of the common people in order to experience how they lived." He snatched up a clove of laba garlic and solemnly put it in his mouth. After that, at dinner, the princes ate half a dish of laba garlic with their porridge, and Chizzy in particular ate a great deal, sending me and my mother into agonies lest he pickle himself. Finally, I had a container of laba garlic brought out, and some of its contents packed into a small blue and white porcelain jar, which I sent back with Chizzy to the palace, so the crown prince could further experience the life of the common people. That, at last, was the end of it. The prince remembered. I patted the earth down firmly and stood. Chitan said quietly, "Uncle, you cannot stay here long. As long as you keep him in your heart, the late emperor in heaven is sure to know." I turned. I seemed to hear someone behind me call out, "Cheng Jun." I looked back. In this place where the bones of the imperial family were buried, where would that first person to call my courtesy name come from? When we left the imperial tombs, I saw from the corner of my eye a figure standing by the rock face along the road. He smiled at me, his expression profoundly relaxed, and vanished into the rock face. Autumn rain streamed down. The red foliage was gorgeous. It was almost as if he had never been there. I let down the curtain, and the carriage moved smoothly forward. We returned to Dai Manor. The next day, when the rain had stopped, I made ready to go home. Rancy was at home waiting for me. Chitan had wanted me to stay for a few days more. I said, "Our business is flourishing, and it's too much for Rancy to handle on his own. I must hurry back." "You only say that because you don't want to stay, Uncle," said Chitan. "I'm not extorting you anymore, so why are you in such a hurry to run off?" "Is that any way for a Prince Regent to talk?" I said. Smiling, Chitan said, "In front of you, I'll be forever young." A pastel of children played in the garden outside. Chiton had told me earlier that some were his and some belonged to Chi Fei and the rest. Because there were many antiques at Dai Manor, and the furnishings were new and exquisite, they all liked coming here to play. On the veranda beside the garden, I saw a few palace eunuchs standing with a youth. The child's immature face, looked familiar to me. Couldn't help looking at him again. Chiton laughed. That one's of so-and-sos and the same as the rest of them. Just the same. I smiled. Chiton sighed. When I look at them, I remember when I was little, playing at Huai Manor. Things were better when we were little, with nothing on our minds. Yes, it was better when they were little, innocent and artless. Whenever the adults had taught them whatever they had learned, they still had the simplicity of childhood. For example, that time decades ago when I had held them up so they could pick plum blossoms. I only understood later when my mother told me that all the princes had gathered at Huai Manor that day because my father had just died. Various factions wanted to find out where I stood. That day, I picked up each of the princes one by one, so at first they could find out nothing. But later, because of the spilled cup of tea, I had held Chizzy longest, and therefore Huai Manor had joined the Crown Prince's faction. It would not do to dwell on this. Decades had passed. Many people and things were now gone. Looking back, it was just some kids coming to play at their uncle's house. A servant ducked inside and whispered something into Chiton's ear. Chiton said to me that he had to take care of something. He would be back in a moment. He stood and left. I went to the veranda and slowly strolled, watching the children play. Suddenly, I heard a sound from the small hall next to me. I glanced inside and saw Chiton bow and say, "I must go see to my guest. I will return soon." Seated at the head of the room was the boy I had seen standing on the veranda earlier. His clear, childish eyes were watching Chiton. With a show of sophistication, he inclined his head. "Then we will await you here, Imperial Uncle." The end. Kind of full circle there. But I hope that Chiton's fate is a bit nicer than Uncle Huai turned out. So, who knows? I'm intrigued to see kind of where the extras go with it. But I'm glad we finally got like some confirmation of a relationship, because like there was twisty, windy road to go for that one. So I'm hoping we get a little more of the sweetness of those two, maybe in some of the extras, because like it really got, the guy went through it. Like, come on, he deserves some happiness and like domestic bliss. There were some definite surprise. Like, I was not expecting the Yunyu like genealogy reveal right there. Like, that threw me for a loop for sure. But it was a pretty good story. Like, there were definitely some points that frustrated me greatly, but it was written very well. And for a style, that being like first person, which I usually don't read and I'm not usually the fondest of, they did a fantastic job with that. And they stuck to it. They did not change perspectives. It was all from one person point of view, which can be pretty hard to stick with for authors. So I think that was pretty interesting. And I'm intrigued to see where the extras go, if they'll like time skip or what. But we will be reading the first one tomorrow because I will not be available Thursday. But there are 3 extras. 3? Yes. So we're going to read just one of them tomorrow, and then we will read the other 2 on Tuesday. So it'll be just the normal 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. But yeah. Did you all enjoy it? Like, I know it kind of felt a little abrupt at the end. Like, oh yeah, circling around 10 years later, Tizzy dies. I wonder which person, which nephew kind of took over. You did. I'm glad you liked it, Chikiki. Yeah, it was a wild ride. Definitely abrupt at the end. I agree, Peacock Pages. Maybe the extras will fill in a little bit of that. But yeah, it's kind of like, oh, okay, the end. Like, I'm glad he finally got together with a relationship, because like the dude he just wanted someone to be with him through life. Like, he had pretty simple wants. He wanted to be like a good uncle for his nephew, support his monarch, and just like have somebody in his life that he could be with and experience life with and love with. He just needed to communicate better. I'm glad he ended up with someone life was rough for him. I agree, Momar's Rover. Yeah. They built that relationship brick by brick, knocked it down a couple times, like had to import some materials from somewhere else. They got delayed with shipping, had to pay a little extra to get it here. Some of it was cracked, but then they finally pasted that shit up and apparently built a very nice house with it. Good foundations. And there they live. Hopefully, relatively happily ever after. With many less imperial constraints. Hopefully, if the Imperial Uncle cycle repeats, it's not as tragic. But yeah. All right. This was interesting. I know, like, we're not quite there. We still have the extras to get through, but the next book that we'll be reading, Peach Blossom Debt, is by the same author. So I'm intrigued, just kind of going forward. Like, I'm intrigued if that's also first person, and or if it's a different style. Like, so I guess we'll find that out. Oh, it is? It is first person? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, they do a good job writing in first person. So, yeah, I agree. I think it'll be fun to see more from this author. And it doesn't change. Okay. Well, I didn't know. Some authors, they play around with writing styles. After that, like after we finish with the peach flower house, I always want to call it like peach tree house. I'm like, no, this is not the magic tree house books. Peach flower house books that I have. I'm thinking I'll put up a poll like for what Don May series. I'm kind of thinking Thousand Autumns or our fish book. If we did do Thousand Autumns, then I'd probably do Peerless after that, kind of because it's got that same universe sort of aspect. But I'm also open to other suggestions. I'd prefer to do completed series or like ones that like by the time we get to them are probably going to be complete. But yeah, I will post that eventually. We'll probably closer when we get closer to being finished with Peach Blossom Debt, so it's not going to be for a while. But just so we can think about that. But yeah, this was pretty fun. This one was definitely a lot longer. We're almost actually at 4 hours, so I'm kind of surprised with how okay my throat feels right now. Maybe I just need to drink Monster when doing this each time. Maybe it's better. Thank you for sticking with it. Thank you guys for sticking with it. It's almost double what we usually do. So I know it was a longer stream, but I definitely enjoyed it. Tomorrow is probably going to be closer to our normal time, maybe even a little shorter because it's only 40-ish pages. Usually I do like around 50. So it'll probably be like 2 hours. But yeah. And then we will see. But yeah, that'll be tomorrow. So I hope most of you can be there. And if not, it'll be up and ready for you just like always. I know that life happens and we can't always be there. Especially since it's a different day. But if you can make it, I'd love to see you. I'd love to chat. If not, I hope you enjoy it when you get to see it. Both those in the chat and those who are watching later. I appreciate everybody that enjoys this with me and says hello. Anyway, it is late and I should probably rest my voice for tomorrow. So I will get that other stream up and ready. And have a wonderful evening to all of you. Have a good evening, Peacock Pages. And I will try Loratadine tomorrow because I'm thinking it's a basement, so there's probably dust and all that here. So that's probably what's making me all the time. But that's a me problem. Good night. Bye.